welcome back everybody to Open Division EU Season 3 playoffs. We are now into round 2, where we are going to be seeing the winners from our last round, Dopamine, going up against Elo.Tick. So we've seen a lot from Dopamine already. We just watched them beat Eminence Esports in round 1. But Elo.Tick are going to be bringing something new to the board. They have 4 members on their team who played in this year's World Cup. So guys, how do we think that this is going to have an effect on this? You got 4 World Cup players on your team? That's pretty big.
I mean, for name value, it's absolutely huge. There's a lot of really familiar names on this Elo.Tick roster for people who have been following Tier 3 for a while. The number one I want to mention is actually Progi on the main tank role. He's had an absolutely huge performance for Germany at the World Cup, turned a lot of heads, and a lot of people are starting to give him a lot more respect after the performance he was putting up. But when you look over at players like Carnifex and Bims, who represented Team Italy, even their substitute support Dyer, who made it onto the UK 12-man roster, there's a lot of international experience here, and it's all fusing together on Elo.Tick, and it comes out with a pretty good product. They're a really strong team, and I'm excited for what they can do today.
We've just seen Dopamine show some tank-heavy compositions. They brought out the 3-2-1 quite a lot. How do we want to see Elo.Tick adapting to this and playing their own strategies to counter this in order to get the win for themselves this round?
A 3-2-1 composition, tank heavy, is quite hectic to deal with, especially if they've got a lot of good healing. So what I'm expecting to see is possibly a little bit of Doomfist, especially because these are some World Cup players, and we've seen recently in the World Cup a lot of Sombra, a lot of Doomfist, a lot of those like really tank dominating heroes. So that's exactly what I'm expecting to see. Now, possibly even a little bit of Farah. Stay off the ground, stay out of the brawl, keep spamming that damage into those tanks, get them down as quickly as possible. I think that's really where their success is going to lie in these coming games.
I think what we're going to be seeing here is essentially a war of this amazing individual skill that's perhaps been a little bit separated by having to scrim for their World Cup teams versus this team that has been around for a really long time and has done a lot of scrimming together and works really well around each other as a team. Where are kind of the positives and negatives on this, and how might we see a downfall on either side?
I mean, like you said, the fact that they've been busy with the World Cup does detract from some of their scrim time with Elo.Tick, and we might see that come up today with maybe some miscommunication issues, maybe teams not being used to each other's play style. But that said, having the opportunity to go off with the World Cup, play with some of these World Cup tier coaches and players, it brings new ideas along to the table, makes you rethink some of your strategies, some of your play styles, and being able to bring all those experience and ideas into one team could prove really beneficial for Elo.Tick.
Nari, what about you?
Absolutely. The downside, as we mentioned, not being able to practice. Synergy is incredibly important. We've mentioned a few times, solo carry is not the way at this level of competition. But given the fact that most of those players come from a World Cup experience, they can probably slide into it a little bit more easily, find that synergy, communicate really well. The communication level must be top notch. So that's a definite plus side. But again, as you mentioned, Dopamine, with so much practice time, so much scrim time, practicing 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. 60% of that goes to scrims, 40% of that is VOD reviews. They are spending a lot of time upping their game, making sure that they're doing well, and that is going to work massively in their favor. Nobody's distracted by World Cups or other such nonsense. They are fully invested in this team, this one team. This is what they want, this is what they're going for, and that's going to work in their favor.
I think personally this is one of those matchups that whoever ends up losing this series is going to end up being one of the titans of the losers bracket. So we may end up still seeing both these teams further down the line. That being said, who do you guys think is going to win?
I'm going to go with Elo.Tick here. We saw a really strong performance from Dopamine in our first round, and it's definitely going to be a competitive series. But I feel like Elo.Tick's international pedigree, some of these World Cup players who have been making names for themselves lately, I feel like that's going to give them the advantage here. Especially look for Progi on the main tank role to pop off and try and shut down Mezek. I feel like Elo.Tick's going to take this, I'll say 3-1.
Yeah, I would actually have to 100% agree with that. 3-1. The stacked nature of this roster, the fact that they they understand what playing under massive pressure is all about. Their heads are in the right space. Yeah, 3-1. Definitely a good fight going to be coming through from Dopamine, but Elo.Tick just that little bit more.
We're pretty confident on that 3-1 prediction, but it's time for us to find out for ourselves. So I'm going to throw it over to our casters. I hold Shift and Herix to find out.
Thanks so much, Gio. Appreciate it. Al and I hold Shift on a Frio right here, and we've got. I'm never good at this. Left or right? Herix is on one of the sides with me. How you doing this afternoon, my friend?
Real good. There's really not too much left that can wake me up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday for a sound check, and I think Overwatch might be the only thing left at this stage. So I'm obviously really excited. I mean, we got two really solid teams. Our analysts already spoke about it a little bit. How I mean, these are two good teams to the point where whoever winds up losing this is going to be a dominant force in the losers bracket. So obviously, there's a lot of competition between these two rosters. I mean, a lot of history between these players as well. You know, a lot to talk about, a lot to go over, but I mean, the action I think is where it's going to be at.
And I think you hit it on the head too. With this isn't just a one shot at it. I mean, the team that ends up falling at the end of what could potentially be a full 5 games will still have a second life in that bottom-sided bracket. And like the analyst said very nicely, that both of these teams are going up against each other in this second round of winners bracket, but have proved themselves, only losing 1 game so far. So this is going to be interesting to see. And let's take a look at the maps as we go through. Control will be our first map style, and it looks like we will be on Nepal first and foremost. So as you're taking a look at this eastern-sided environment, what are you looking forward to most on Nepal here, Herix?
Well, Nepal is one of those maps that can be, you know, really dynamic. We see obviously Village and Shrine, you know, there's a lot of different looks there, but Sanctum is an all-out different take on, you know, how you play that kind of map style. You know, obviously a lot of teams that go on to Shrine, you can see them play something like Goats, but on Sanctum, something like that just doesn't really work that well or that often if it even does. So, I mean, seeing different looks from these two teams is really going to be great for us to gauge as a first map, especially what to expect as we move into other types of maps where maybe Goats is good, maybe Dive is better, and we'll get different takes on maybe even Orisa comps that we can maybe see in Sanctum as well. And I think Nepal is probably one of my favorite. I would say between Nepal and Lijiang Tower are probably my favorite looks as first maps for every set that I look at, because it's such a good indicator of what to expect moving forward.
And it looks like it will be Shrine up first and foremost. And you said not usually the spot that we see that 3-3 composition that we label as the Goats comp. And the analysts hit on potentially seeing things like Pharah or Doomfist to try to elevate the gameplay a little bit more. What specifically are you looking forward on a map like Shrine when it comes to either a Pharah or what is more likely something along the lines of like a Doomfist or some kind of a flanker?
I'm looking for zone dominance and area denial. Goats is really good at that. Yes, we might not see it on Sanctum, but you know, this is definitely a map where it can surely shine. But again, it just really comes down to engaging that control point and holding that area, making sure that anybody that goes in there gets punished by those Briggs.
And it looks like it will be Briggs on both sides. Mirror matchups coming through, and it will be Dopamine opting to go onto the point first and foremost. But coming right back to contest is Elo.Tick in red, trying to force their way on as the point is about 5 seconds away from unlocking. No frags as of yet, looking for prioritization. There is a DMAC happening on the Sean P first and foremost as the battery comes through. And now an Earthshatter immediately from Mezek. That will stun a lot, and that will be the first fight going the way of Dopamine pretty convincingly, finding nearly, and there it is, a full team wipe on the back end, not losing a single player. And wow, talk about opening up with a statement. That's Dopamine setting things off nicely.
Yeah, I mean, Ruby coming through with so much space. You can see how the Reinhardt just came right in and just blasted everybody to the floor. Ruby had so much room to work with. That's a big difference in these two compositions. Ruby is going to be throwing Progi off quite a lot with those discords coming off of the Brigida stuns right through off the shield bash. Definitely look for that as a setup to take the Reinhardt out early.
A lot of early poke coming out for the second engage of Dopamine, and now the grab storm right there, and will happen to set up Mezek for what is an easy charge onto Progi, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. And even still trades happening back and forth. The rally coming off of the bar, and he'll be able to chase down Sean P, who will take a skydiving lesson off the side of the map. And again, a very convincing second fight win here for Dopamine.
Not too much use too. I mean, we see them already getting back into mech. They're close to a self-destruct. They have both of their options for support, namely that Transcendence, which can save them from Obling's Graviton. Definitely looking to see what kind of follow-up we might get out of Elo.Tick, but now that they've changed to the Zen, they do, of course, have a little bit more damage, but it's going to have to come all out from the cleave, and the setup from Progi here might require the Earth Shatter as well.
Earth Shatter could be big, but it's going to be a self-destruct right through the middle, and it will actually find Babar. Still have not found Progi using his Earth Shatter, but coming out with one combination is Sept is able to take down 2.5 with his self-destruct into the back line. He's able to find the Lucio, which is absolutely huge as far as the sustained games. Transcendence will trade hands between both Zenyatas, and yet again, the point still in control for Dopamine as they try to chase down Sean P, and they will be able to do so successfully. So again, Progi has not hit the trigger on this Earth Shatter yet.
Oh, you talk about control and composure. Dopamine has it. Elo.Tick simply does not. A lot of mistakes, things that they didn't want to have happen there. Now they just don't have too many options going into this.
Progi will jump on with a bubble on top of him. Still looking to set up that Earth Shatter. Has not pulled the trigger yet. Now he will, and it will find a handful on the left-hand side, but immediately after, it's going to be Carr with the sound barrier. Seeing that and taking a page out of his book, it's going to be Bims trading one of his own, but another Graviton Surge comes out. It's good enough for the DMAC on the Sean P, who will be completely destroyed by the hammer once again of Mezek, who has won this Reinhardt battle so far. Lucio will be dancing around for the side of Elo.Tick, trying to sustain as long as possible, but that'll be one nice little rocket flare from Babar to take him down in 100-0. Talk about your convincing performances.
I mean, hero plays already out of the gate. I mean, we've seen great things already from the main tank, from Dopamine. I mean, Mezek set things up so nicely, allowed his team to be in a position where they can make pivotal, have that impact. And we saw that from Sept. He ate the Graviton, the only Graviton that we saw out of Obling that entire match, or that entire round rather. It was eaten up. It was just gobbled up by the defense matrix. So excellent startup there. We saw that return self-destruct got more value, and then forcing that Transcendence out. Again, I mean, Ruby has a storied history on this Zenyatta. Expect them to play this more often than not, especially now that we've seen from Open Division, and Elo.Tick certainly has seen this, the Zen version of the Ana, or rather the Goats, over the Ana and over the Moira, and what kind of damage that can do instantly to your Reinhardt.
And it's been pretty much the game dictated speed-wise by Dopamine. Elo.Tick, though, wants to change that, and they'll set up on the point first, while Dopamine will admire them from the high ground. Mezek's still looking for a way to get in. Now will drop down and tries to find a way to open things up. Point will unlock, and it's going to be actually Elo.Tick coming out to meet them with aggressiveness, but yet again, this Goat's got 3-3. This is so hard to break, and it comes down to if you can find that one target. Babar tries to go in, but he gets pushed immediately back. Progi now moving on through, and it's going to be Babar first and foremost taken down. So now, will the gas be hit? Will they put this into overdrive? Can they find more kills? The Coalescence will be that green light, and now trying to chase down Mezek and ID. They will find two, and just like that, point captured, and the tides have changed. Elo.Tick in control.
Yeah, great adaptation to what, was their problem beforehand. Ruby on that Zenyatta taking sightlines is their main DPS here. Now they just clump up in the corner, kind of deny that sightline from being a lethal sightline for the Zen, and then allow Conga to kind of just take advantage of the fact that they're all stacked up, gets lots of healing. That's a quick Coalescence.
Very quick one, and now they're going to have an Earth Shatter, and that's going to be exactly what comes out, and it finds a couple, of the sound barrier is there to respond, but it's just a little bit too late as Babar and Mezek have already fallen, and the rally has also been popped just as a way to try to chase down some of these kills. They'll find IDX, and they want to find more, but, well, everyone else has already responded by retreating into the Aurora and regrouping, but my goodness, look at this sneaky positioning here, Hurix. Everyone's stacking up for the side of Elo.Tick in this small right-hand-sided room for Dopamine.
Yeah, and they always want to take this opportunity to take these small quarters. Now as they allow the opposition to get out into the open, maybe this will get a little bit more dangerous for them. But again, look for them to play that same exact corner, one of them if they can.
Now moving back on through the hammer, coming out, the Earth Shatter won't find much. The self-destruct gets thrown right through the middle for the side of Dopamine, but again doesn't find anything. So now Elo.Tick with a response of their own, and it's right into a grab, but there was a great shield place to negate it. Now the Transcendence from Ruby, it just fades away. He's getting some aggressive from Sean P, who was being met by Sept. Again, still not any trades happening yet. Now an Earth Shatter coming out, this time for the side of Elo.Tick, and it finds a handful stunned, but none falling down, and Mezek has got himself another Earth Shatter, and he's able to find himself 3. Ruby with the 4th. Finally, Dopamine coming to life, and that will be enough to take everybody down. And a full team wipe coming out. That looks like the Dopamine from environment number 1 on the Shrine. They finally get recontrol, stalling at 98%.
we have to remember that that was the second Earth Shatter we got out of Messick. That fight, that single fight. Now they have a little bit of armor. They have a little bit of time to make sure that they regain their composure here. Obling's only 40% away from an ult, but they have time to work with.
And they have the rally as well, which will spawn them through nice and quick, especially with that Lucio speed boost behind it. They're moving like lightning, but Messick again with a huge fire strike to connect onto 3 bodies will be, of course, healed right back up. And now the point in contest. Looking for a way to turn the Messick with the 3rd Earth Shatter. He's been absolutely groundbreaking, quite literally. Now the sound barrier for the side of Dopamine trying to make him going on through to find these kills. Messick again being the champion of this Reinhardt battle will find Frogy. A couple more kills will fall away, and now everyone is split up from Elo.Tick. And you talk about this GOATS being hard to dissolve, but once it starts to get pierced, it really does become one team coming up, usually 6 for none.
And look at Messick, already back at 86%. I mean, he's realistically just one huge fire strike, which he's been so consistent with, away from another Earth Shatter. ID has his Graviton as well. They have the weapons to close this next fight out and maybe get us to one last fight.
The Graviton Surge will keep everybody in place. The self-destruct right behind it will find 2. It gets the Moira and the Reinhardt for Elo.Tick, and now Carnifex also falling right after that. Sean P will fall to his death, and Lucio will take a similar accord as he tries to run all the way back. But again, this Dopamine team has really come out with a lot of life, and you have to give it credit to where it's due. Messick has been lights out.
Absolutely, definitely a player to keep your eye on here as he has an Earth Shatter. We see Obling with the Graviton. Ruby can answer easily with her Transcendence. They set themselves up to be able to possibly take this away.
Trying to swing from left to right, moving on to point to make sure this stays in context. It's at 94%. 98 was what it was for Elo.Tick. Trying to change things to make it good to Transcendence. Right in front of that Graviton Surge, but there is enough damage from the self-destruct to take down Messick. And now following up his Frogy with an Earth Shatter of his own, able to take down Babar. And it gets returned over to the side of Elo.Tick. No one's able to touch for overtime. And man, you talk about finding a good target to take down. Messick's going to be that target likely every single time based on what we've seen from him so far.
And that's, again, the pressure that comes out from the Zen version of that GOATS composition. You have that lethality, that instant burst potential. Babar, if he's able to set up with his team, get that huge value out of, you know, finding the Zarya, get a little bit of a rhythm for when the Zarya is pushing out those projected barriers. When one goes down, set up with your team. I'm going to shield bash. There goes the Reinhardt shield. Open up with a huge, fully stacked up right click. All charged up from the Zenyatta, hit the Discord so your Reinhardt can follow up, and that's just tons of pressure that Frogy has to deal with, and that can allow Messick to shine in these situations.
And now we go over to our 3rd environment here on Sanctum, and we talked about how there could be potentialness for things to change. We do have an Orisa for Messick this time around, coming out with ID with a Widow, and he takes a first shot, which will connect through those pillars. Sean P not liking that. We'll back up a little bit further just to make sure he doesn't get demac'd early. No one opting to get onto point so far. Tracer trying to find a way to find a flank as well. So a little bit of counterplay coming out so far here, but his double sniper setup with the Hanzo Widow has left Dopamine playing a little bit more passively than they had previously, but Obling coming in with the aggressiveness. We'll find Babar first and foremost. Sean P will get demac'd, but Messick is on point. And talk about trying to find a hard way to get this point back in control when you have an Orisa standing on point and being unmovable, looking to stay around, but there are 4 bodies around him, and go figure, Elo.Tick with this flank pressure coming out of Carnifex, they've found enough kills to turn the tides.
That dive just working out into the double sniper. And now we're seeing the swap. They're going back over to the GOATS. I mean, this is so interesting that not only are they doing this, but they're doing it with the Moira. So we're going to be seeing them clumped up together, trying to rotate around the map and find any advantage that they possibly can. Maybe force the payload against this dive. Or sorry, the control.
I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so far, it's looked pretty solid. But Messick will be taken down first and foremost. And you can see what that does, Dopamine. They're completely scattered around, especially now that Setlet has been pushed off. But oh, they take Kanga off the map. He was in the middle of Transcendence, and Kara said, get that off my floor, and boops him straight off the back end, which is this moment of success now for Dopamine. It was in contest. It's at 34%, but the kills are going the way of Dopamine. Carnifex, one of the last ones left, and oh no, it's a solo sound barrier. Is there enough time to keep this one in contest? Looks like it will be, as Frogy comes back in with a big Primal Rage knockoff onto Messick again, who falls into the deep blue. But is that enough distraction? They end up getting it to 51%, and oh my goodness, Sean P comes in at the last second just a touch. Carnifex wanted to follow suit, but he'll recall back away. But wow, what a cheeky play that was. A lot committed to try to hold that point for as long as possible.
They're going to need Kara to potentially get Ruby back in, but already the fight is starting, and they're forced to take this down a man.
Well, they used the rally to try to push through, and Carnifex just touched just to try to force that out, and, well, it may have worked. They do get the shield bash kill on the Kanga, and Barbar is still going off on Zobbling as well. So, again, this has been really staggered so far, Herix. Do you want to see a switch potentially, Philo?
It's tough to say because going against goats like this, if they actually get their dive rolling, if they set up, it might take some time for them to swap, but they should be able to win it over goats because they're forced to play. And I mean, you can see where they're going. Everything is very telegraphed, so we are going to be seeing a slight change, a little bit more of an adjustment towards allowing them to get pressure onto both the shield via Carnifex, making it swap to Hanzo, as well as just some overhead pressure from the Pharah.
Yep, and Brogy will try to start things off. Self-destruct came out, not able to find anything, but Setlit responds with 2. And that's on the big damage dealers of Carnifex and Oblink. Brogy will fall away. Sean P as well, a full team wipe coming out once again from Dopamine. And yeah, we talked about needing a switch. They do switch over from the far, and they say that's not working. It's immediately back to Azaria.
And this is where that desperation really becomes a problem because now you're down. I mean, ID is close to the Graviton. We see tons of options for Dopamine, and this is going to be all-out aggression from Elo.Tick. Bring out the Hammond instead of the D.Va.
And all the ultimates lost as well, starting essentially from scratch. The Coalescence coming out for the side of Dopamine, the Earth Shatter as well, but it doesn't really hit much. The Graviton Surge will hold everybody in place, though. Trying to throw orbs from the backline is Kanga, but he doesn't have the Transcendence or anything really to heal through that, so that will be Carnifex also falling away. And look at this, the overdrive setting in, and Dopamine wants to end this one here. 92% and counting up. They're trying to sneak around to the back of the point is Elo.Tick. They'll try to get there, and it looks like the only one able to touch is Sean P on the Hammond. The Wrecking Ball doing what he can, but he'll be stunned. He tries to pop the shield, the Seismic Slam, using everything in this kit, but there's just not enough there. The overtime coming through, it's going to be the annoyance game as it's going to be the Tracer trying to toggle this overtime as long as possible, but now Brogy, he's going to take this one in the hand. Sound Barrier coming out. Mezek tries to find the charge, but just a little bit outside on that one. Still have numbers. That's the big key, and the self-destruct will zone away the point. Overtime still needs to be touched. Ooh, and now finally Kanga with that Transcendence. It might open up some hope for Elo.Tick. And how about that? Sean P actually throws Mezek off once again. It's boops for boops, though, as Kanga also drops away. Numbers still for Dopamine, but the minefield is there for Sean P and Elo.Tick. But can anyone else come and touch? Carnifex needs to help out as much as possible. But the Graviton Surge finds all 3, and that'll clean him up. Brogy with the big Earth Shatter, but he's just not able to touch in time. Dopamine will take map number 1, but goodness gracious, it was close there for a second.
It really was. I mean, as soon as we see them swap over to the goats and really try to empower Mezek, he goes so far with that, that allotment of resources. I mean, we're going to see right here in the play of the game just how disgusting he can be when he's set up like this. They can just tear down Progi. You saw the damage there coming out from the Zenyatta version of the goats comp there as well. As soon as Progi dropped his shield, he was, I mean, completely murdered outright. But here's a new version of a composition that we've seen a lot of over the last few months. We've seen different versions come out, particularly with the supports, where we've seen Moira specifically first, when we first saw it back in Open Division Season 2 playoffs featuring GOATs, obviously, and then they made it very popular by continuing their performance through to other tournaments pretty quick after that. But we have seen changes. We've seen meta shifts. We've seen adaptations being made as well. We've seen the Ana. We've seen different looks as well in terms of bringing in, a DPS instead of the Brig with Sombra or May or, any number of different possibilities. But something that we haven't really seen too often is dropping a D.Va, if at all, for a Hammond. And this is an interesting concept because it's very much more aggressive. It forces a lot of the pressure into the backline, where if you can gain that advantage by jumping into the backline, suppressing them, taking out a Moira, taking out a Lucio, taking out a Zenyatta very early, especially given the fact that Dopamine often does run that Zenyatta, that can be a big boon because now you don't have to worry about as much pressure. Now you don't have to worry about as much healing, and you can start snowballing fights a lot easier. But here's the problem. If Dopamine is a team that knows how to adapt to this, if they see this and they go, you know what? Let's just play this slow. Let's play this defensively. We know Hammond's going to want to come in and then just hit him with the Brig stun. They can easily get a kill themselves right off the bat.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of inherent risk versus reward that comes into play with these two types of compositions going at each other like this. And I'm interested to see how, first of all, Elo.Tick wants to continue this. If they do, and then if they do, are we going to see Dopamine able to adapt to it? Are they going to be playing more slow, setting up and playing more reactively to the Hammond so that they could take it down? Because we even saw in that round how the D.Va can throw out a defense matrix and shut down Progi. And that's what they were doing all match, was shutting down Progi. And by having the advantage of the D.Va versus no D.Va means that your Reinhardt is going to be far, far ahead in terms of getting his Earth Shatter up quickly because he doesn't have the denial of the Fire Strike.
It's one of those things. It's like the smallest minute game of rock paper scissors, because you take something in the hope of countering something else, but you yourself might get countered. It's a full trifecta. You hit that pretty nicely there, Hurix. Hey, he's Hurix, whichever side. He's got the guy with the mind. I'm Ship, and the guy who likes to make him look good. He actually makes me look good as well. But so as you take a look, we talk about these support roles, especially not just in the 3-3s, but also what we've kind of seen Ana come into the meta more as that 2-2-2 as well. Mostly on the back end of obviously the Biotic Grenade being a huge influencer, not only to self-sustain those frontliners, but also to give you that advantage if you catch some of your opponent's frontliners out, because obviously they're not getting healing. But also the combinations of ultimates have been obviously super important since the beginning of Overwatch. But with the nano boost, that's provided a lot more for not only frontline survivability, but also for flank or pop-off potential. Tell me more about why we should expect to see more Ana in the future.
Well, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of Ana already, and I think that speaks to what you were talking about. I mean, exactly hit the nail on the head, is the advantages that you have, especially against GOAT-style compositions, by denying their healing and allowing your team to actually be able to find those picks. And it really comes down to tank denial. It really comes down to tank oppression and suppression, where you force the Reinhardt to play more defensively. It's the same impact that you get out of a Widow, right? Because by playing Widow, the inherent issue going up against that is that now you have to play more defensively. You can't drop your shield. You can't open up those sight lines, or the Widow will find picks, especially at this level of gameplay where we're now in the playoffs. We're now talking about teams that are very, very practiced, very talented. They have the mechanical ability on their players. We've even seen Widow played already. That becomes an issue. And the Biotic Grenade does exactly that. It forces teams to want to play their defense matrix more defensively, staying on top of their team so they can't be as aggressive. And when they do go over to the Ana, if they don't have a very concerted dive, if they don't have the cohesion behind and the synergy behind their dive and the execution with it, they will get slept, they will get biotic, and they will die. So it really forces a different style, where it really forces a lot of the execution side of everything to be a lot more precise, or if not, they will lose out.
Well, as you saw in the maps, we will be taking a long journey through our escort map, as we will be going into Rialto. And I mean, again, that war of attrition that can either favor or, well, be a big thorn in your side, especially when it comes to Ana gameplay, I would say is no more exemplified than on this stage right here, Hurix.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the Sombra plays here as well. We already know that Dopamine likes to play with this GOAT's composition. Yes, we're seeing a different look from Ruby. This is now the third different support that we've seen Ruby on with this composition. This is a guy that I've been following for quite some time. He used to play in AG Weeklies, years ago. We saw him on LCG. We saw him on, I believe, Team Expert. He was on teams even prior to that, playing on NA, playing anywhere he could possibly play to get a good roster to play alongside with. And this is a very lethal support to watch. And it's definitely going to be really cool to see him, certainly more in the Zen, but the Ana is going to be where he has the most impact. And if he can stay away from this Sombra and do just that, keep Mezek alive and set things up for his team, this will be tremendous for Dopamine to possibly set themselves up with a 2-0 lead.
Oh, look at what they're setting up right now. You saw Sept at the beginning of the match was destroying all of the railings around, looking to set up aggressively. And look at this, Bims and Uplink will just go right on by to try to split up Dopamine as much as possible. But Elo.Tick still having a hard time getting out of base. They will have Carnifex using the Bastion with the Orisa combo, looking to come on through. A big anti-nade did hit most of the front line, but we're able to heal mostly through it. As I say that, Uplink able to take down Babar. Carnifex setup will find himself 3. So talk about your good old-fashioned backfire. That little sneaky play will send Setlet down for a small splash in the water just as he gets finished out. And what looked to be a very cheeky start ended up becoming a very aggressive push so far for the side of Elo.Tick.
This is such an interesting way to start out too, because you see that GOATS comp, you expect it, so you just throw everything in at their path that you possibly can with oppressive damage. Now they're actually holding on to this composition too, so now they need to make sure that they deny the re-entry from Dopamine, but they've already let them through.
An ID found a hack on the Carnifex, so he's not able to set up. He's actually struggling to get back into position, but Oblink has set himself up nicely just above everybody in the backline of Dopamine, which will actually force Sept up in the air, but already being demeched. And Carnifex, who was able to retreat and find himself a nice position, was able to assist on 2 of those kills, finding himself 1 more, and Progi again on the Orisa, just holding right on top of the payload, able to find himself the last one, though Reds up Oblink just to keep themselves at full force, as this payload will hit checkpoint A likely before anyone can touch. And yeah, with that Lucio kill, that will be the case. It will hit checkpoint A, and now an awkward position for Dopamine to try to set up here.
Yeah, I mean, Conga is just having too much room here. I mean, they keep trying to go in and try to deal with Carnifex, or maybe even just backed off by Obling, but the longer this progresses, the more biotic grenades we can get out of Conga. We see it again onto Setlet, where they will find that kill as well. They do wind up delaying the cart progress, which is huge for this composition. That's what they're looking at. But, I mean, here's the problem. They already got first point. They are going to find their kills. They are going to be going through, and it's going to take time for Dopamine to set back up. However, once they do, they'll be met by so much firepower. Look at the ult stacked up now, obviously on both sides, but the problem here is that the onus is on Dopamine. They have to get into position first, and in the process, Elo.Tick can just open fire.
And again, all the potential combinations that could come out. Although, to be fair, Dopamine will likely be at full 6 ultimates before too long. The big bongo drums coming out, the supercharger right on top of Carnifex as he tries to chew through some shields, but besides that, not finding much value out of one of those ultimates. So talk about min-maxing your effectiveness. Maybe missed a little bit. Setlet wants to come in. The EMP also being placed down, and now combined with this self-destruct will find Carnifex, who wanted to go into tank mode, but was not able to find a whole heck of a lot. And now with the Valkyries coming out, it's trying to set things up for the side of Elo.Tick, but not able to find much on the back end of it. They will revive and res up Carnifex, who is set up on this little high ground, but a lot of ultimates were kind of traded back and forth, and it was almost a moot point as it was a stalemate throughout most of it. The payload continues to move.
We'll have to see how they want to re-enter the fight. Dopamine has a couple of support ults to kind of shift the momentum, but look how healthy Elo.Tick is as they set up just the way they like to with this Bastion, just surfing the payload forward.
Oh, the call lessons coming out, the go call being made, but Obling will be boosted to the back end. Graviton Surge will find a couple, and then we'll be able to take down at least the mech and as well Carnifex. Obling also got sucked into the tail end of that as well, unexpectedly so. Was put him in the line of fire of a lot of different players. He'll be taken out, and just like that, back end of 2 ultimates, Dopamine resets up.
Yeah, and they're going to make the swap to the GOATS comp themselves here. They know that they aren't going to get much further with the setup that they went with initially. They're going to keep, I would actually expected Conga to stay on the Ana, just given what the impact that they have on it, and on top of that, the Moira being played by Dopamine, but instead they're going to go with the Zenyatta. Now look at Pierogi to have an impact, see if they can do the same thing that happened to Pierogi to Mezek here.
Oh, and they're going to take a fight in this inner lobby, and Mezek tried to come on through. Kara will find the first kill of this match, and it looks like, look at this, Dopamine with the immediate switch is finding a lot of success. Everybody from Elo.Tick is completely spread apart. Shonepiece is trying to dance around with the Bunny Blaster, as she does not have a mech to her name at the moment, and again, numbers still favoring Dopamine. They want to push on board. The Earthshatter comes out, but doesn't really find anything. Progi's shield was in a good spot to soak that up and deny it, and now was almost a game of tug of war. Comes back through. Elo.Tick senses some vulnerabilities and wants to move on forward themselves and retake at least this L corner, which is so tough. One of the hardest spots on the map to push through and to try to spread everybody apart. The self-destruct will come out and but actually found Pierogi before he can get the shield back up in time. And now moving back forward is Dopamine, looking to clean up whatever of this fight that they possibly can. Shonepi will give some charge to Obling by smacking and going all the way through that fight and then back right on out. So a little bit of, again, sustain for sustain here.
Yeah, we talked about the differences between a lot of these different looks on GOATS comp. We already talked about the Sombra, you know, being a pivotal role, and this is exactly it. That Sombra took down the shield from Progi. Expect that to continue here, especially with an EMP to make it even that much easier as the setup looks kind of already start out.
And he's able to find it. On top of that, a call lessons with the Graviton Surge. Dopamine looking to clean this fight completely up, and they will do so. The only player left alive is Shonepi, and once again, takes a little dip just off the docks. And wow, you called that perfectly, as if you're reading it. That one off the script there, Hurix. It was a huge setup by the EMP. combos coming right afterwards. Now only 40 seconds, but there are 6 ultimates available, and they're going to take this fight immediately if they want to have a chance to come back through. The rally here being popped, looking for a way to boost on forward. Brogy coming in. Can he find himself in their shatter? He wants to. But Mezek, he swings and misses and then gets booped off, but Carnifex goes off with him. Now the Earth Shatter for Rezik, or pardon me, for Brogy. He comes through and now looking for the self-destruct, but not able to find any kills in the back end. 16 seconds left. Still a couple of players left alive for Dopamine, and they're able to actually find a big kill on a Brogy, so that lack of the frontliner of Reinhardt will keep them vulnerable to Mezek, who is back in this fight. It's just 5 seconds left. Oh my goodness, they're able to take down Setlet and Kara on the back end, so now Mezek has to back up, but can they sustain this defense? I'm sure they don't want to give up this point, but they have to touch. The front wheels are on the point. They need to find a way to get it through, and the Graviton Surge might just set it up with the Coalescence from Ruby on the back end. Will keep everybody sucked up nice and healthy, and now that's going to be the EMP on the back end. Can they finally get this defense what last legs it needs? Hobbling and full charge, but he's low, and the sound barrier comes out at the exact right time. Looking for a way to set this up. Keiga, he needs to get this Transcendence. He's so close to it. It might not make a difference, though, because all that's left is the Sombra and the Moira, and both will be peeled away. Ooh, it came down to the wire, but they found it.
Yeah, they really, I mean, Dopamine, what they needed there was for the EMP self-destruct combo to find value. They just didn't get it. They weren't able to deny the points of regression that we saw Elo.Tick taking. Now, as we look forward, there's just over a minute left here. We see already the Graviton Surge into Konga Transcendence. They want to get aggressive here, Dopamine that is, as they're looking to drop that down. Look for, oh, Konga already dropped his Transcendence.
And they want to set up the self-destruct, but it doesn't really find much. And now immediately as a counter, Babara comes around the backside with the Graviton Surge. Brogy responds with a huge counter ultimate. The Earth Shatter finds 3. It takes down both frontliners, and Ruby also falls. It's looking like a full team wipe. Mezek is going to be the only player that could touch really at this time. He's the only closest one there. Will charge on forward, and he finds a pin. Brogy and immediately counters it with an Earth Shatter. He gets shielded. They're looking to clean this one up, and Mezek, he comes back clutch with a huge fire strike that takes down Bims and Brogy. That sends the rest of Elo.Tick running for the hills, and they're only left with 20 seconds.
If you are a Reinhardt player in any capacity, you are watching this game. You are, your players, your team is forcing you to watch this game right now, to take notes from our boy Mezek. He is popping off in a way that we just have not seen before.
The self-destruct coming out for Dopamine was just a bit outside as it went high, but Mezek again coming in huge. He finds 2.5. Obling has no way to touch. Shonfi, his only choice is to self-destruct and try to zone, but he won't even get a chance to remech. Bims will give it a go, but it only lasts for so long, and the overtime will fade away. Dopamine on the back end of Mezek's massive hammer once again sustained the defense.
Holy, I mean, we saw a definite, a lot of hiccups, you know, starting off. We saw a great composition coming out of the doors. Like right when they opened, we saw Carnifex and Obling on the exact heroes that we needed to see them on to just push down and really oppress that GOATS comp that was probably expected outright from Dopamine. However, that quick shift where we saw them able to take that fight, that was exactly what we saw in Control, where, you know, once they get control, once they can start dictating the pacing of some of these engagements and they can really start getting everything underneath them, they can start controlling their ult timings better. That was something that we saw that was a little bit lackluster, especially as compared to what we saw in Control. You know, but however, once they gain that control themselves, instant turnaround, big pivot, Mezek starts popping off as well. Definitely expect to see more of that. Yes, a lot of resources are being sent to him. And I say this a lot of times as well with, you know, Reinhardts that are popping. It's important to realize what needs to happen in order for a Reinhardt to have a performance like that. But what's so insane and what's so different about this performance here with Mezek is that while, yes, he is getting resources and yes, they are enabling him to a degree, he can do it alone. We saw him able to contest a point almost virtually solo, jumps in, nails Progi on a charge, and then turns around with a massive Earthshatter Fire Strike combo and cleaves out while his team is just approaching the fight. Basically, they're saying, okay, contest, let's see how much time we can take away. And Mezek's going, oh no, I can take this whole fight by my damn self.
Sure did. If you were to spell however, you might spell it M-E-S-I-C, because goodness, Mezek really did turn the tides. You got to give props to Babar, who gave him a really clutch shield. You know, the rest of the team helping out where they needed to. But again, Mezek is definitely the playmaker, at least so far he has been. Obling and Bims with the pharmacy combo. They want to set up this and possibly get a concussive plan. Concussive blast would be nice, but that will be sucked up by the defense magic of Setlet. Brogy in a little bit of trouble on the Winston. Will be stunned in place by the shield bash. It will be taking down his first blood in this engagement, and no cheekiness here from Elo.Tick, but it's not going to make too much of a difference as they find themselves a very quick success. They get through those tight alleys and now approaching this courtyard. No response really for Bims and Obling as of yet. Setlet will charge himself up forward, but not able to really do much besides shrug him away. They still have numbers, but they're looking to find positioning potentially on this high ground, which, yes, that's exactly where they'll go. Kara will boost them forward. They're leaving the payload for now. And taking a nap for the moment is Mezek, while Setlet gets demeched. He's the only person who was on the point, and that's just really good target prioritization from Elo.Tick.
Absolutely. They took advantage of that one there. Conga got ran out, but that allowed everybody else to be vulnerable, so they'll just be able to back them out here. Elo.Tick setting up with the barrage over the top. Can they find the kill on Mezek?
Oh, not able to do so. Babar able to help out with a little bit of damage, and Ruby the Coalescence will actually find Carnifex. That's a nice little treat to take with you, as well as sustaining through the barrage, so potential now for Dopamine to keep on moving on forward. That's exactly what they want to try to do. Elo.Tick not being shrugged off this point, at least that's a bit of a Brogy again in this Winston. Gets picked out, and that's again on the back end of just really good target prioritization from Dopamine. They're able to find him very early on and take him out, and again, that only leaves Sean P to try to set up this defense, and he really hasn't been there for a lot of it. Looking to set themselves up right before checkpoint A. Brogy will come back in and will be nano boosted. Does he have anything else to use? Not quite at the Primal Rage as of yet. The EMP traded back and forth, so a lot of abilities being canceled into self-destruct from Sean P. Will take down at least ID, and now finally the Primal Rage comes out for Elo.Tick. Brogy looking to finish off these last couple of offenders, but will only find Setlet, who's happy just to thrust away, so not much value besides pushing away the offense there from that Primal Rage.
Such an important stop for them to make as we see Dopamine trying to set up once again. They already have ID's EMP out. It's gone. They don't have to worry about it. Carnifex, yes, it's down as well, but look, we see Sombra sneaking this. Oh, forces Conga down, possibly out of position. We'll have to see what kind of reset we get out of ID, but already a 1-for-1 over at the main fight.
Was very close to backdoor that. Mezek trying to set things up with their shadow, the sound barrier just behind it for Dopamine. Trying to force their way back through as Obling did start that fight off with a barrage, but did not find much besides a trade for his life. Mezek trying to slash on through Brogy, who's happy to put that lightning right in their face. Now the Coalescence for Dopamine coming out, the self-destruct, trying to keep people alive, but we'll actually find one, and now the Graviton Surge being used in the tight corridors, and that's going to result in mostly a full team kill. The only player left to tell the tale, at least for a small time, was Kega. He'll take a splash, so it will be a full team kill, and checkpoint A getting pushed through from Dopamine.
Silver lining here for Elo.Tick. Yes, they lose the point, but they took so much time away and a lot of ultimates along with it. Almost everything was used there by Dopamine to force that to go through. Now they're really just going to rely on the EMP, and it's going to have to be EMP for EMP here as Carnifex is setting up one of his own.
He's got it now. ID not quite there as of yet. Looking for a way to start things off though is Mezek as he charges and doesn't find a target, but the EMP comes out maybe a little bit late. The self-destruct up and over, doesn't find anything, and now nano boosting Obling. Elo.Tick wants to keep this one alive, and he finds himself too, trying to push everybody else back, and look at that, there's a third EMP now coming out as well for the side of Dopamine, looking to counter that one out. There's Ruby with the Coalescence, who will be able to help out with the DMAC onto Sean P and a kill onto Obling, so for what was spended, they found essentially what they wanted to. Still a big fight on the payload, though, as Brogy is trying to slap away at Mezek, but as he has so far, he continues to win that trade. Sean P and the Mini Diva will be taken down, and the Dopamine payload push continues.
We'll see ID. His point is so far away that he has to reset back up once again. He will do just that. However, I think this is really going to come down to the Sombras. I mean, here we see two teams really, really aggressive. Obviously, as they go and jump in on each other, it's really going to come down to these hacks, what kind of impact we're going to see out of those.
Mezek able to start things off with their shout for Dopamine, moving on through, looking for those kills. Brogy once again being the target of choice. but he stays alive. The Lucio able to use that healing boost just to keep him at around half HP, and then the Nano Nade right behind it will help out to keep him there. The checkpoint has been converted, and moving through the EMP and then the Earth Shatter combination, it's good for Elo.Tick, and they're looking to clean up all of these kills. They would have liked that about 20 seconds sooner, but the result is still the same. It's a team kill. We're just going to narrow under 3 minutes for the rest of this push.
And Carnifex coming through with Progi big time on that one. Now it's ID's turn with Mezik. I mean, they don't have Earthshatter ready, so now it might have to be just an EMP into the Graviton. But is ID just going to sneak this? I think they're going to.
They're causing so much chaos right in the front line of this fight, but ID is riding this payload. No one has any idea how far is he going to ride this roller coaster. If you're a fan
Even
of
Carnifex didn't see it.
He still doesn't see it. He's going to ride this thing all the way through. No one's even close.
Oh,
Who's going to touch this?
Now. Do they notice? They don't notice.
I don't think they know.
They have no idea.
They're still fighting. They're trading ultimates.
Are you kidding me?
is going to ride this thing to the finish line.
Oh, they
Finally,
know.
Biggs
Anna
knows. But oh my goodness, so much payload push was given, and the entire time you have to feel that smile on Elo.Tick's face. They throw out a couple of ultimates. They don't want to kill anybody just so they can keep that payload moving for free. And whoa, that was such a clutch moment. And now, with all of their ultimates, at least 4 of them, Dopamine wants to finish this push, and they might just do it. What is going to counter this, Urix? I don't know if they have anything. The Earthshatter finds 2. The EMP comes out. The Graviton Surge is there, and all that glitters is gold as they find themselves the full team wipe and the rest of the push. Oh, Nelly.
Salt on the wounds. Salt on the wounds, indeed. That was stuff that, like, honestly, when you're looking at going into halftime, you're already down 2-0, and you saw the way that ended. You had a significant turnaround, a huge pivot at the start of this round, starting off defensively. You know, that first point section was all in your favor, and then to have it end on such a sour note like that, oh, that's going to be so tough for them to turn that back around with. At this point, you got to think, Dopamine, did they have a shot before? Yes, but boy, do they have a shot now against a team that our analysts really thought Elo.Tick was going to be able to take.
Well, I mean, on top of that, there's just 2 points that I want to hit you on with Urix. Is first and foremost, Dopamine being so smart, not killing anybody on Elo.Tick to make sure that there was no respawns. They saved ultimates. They did whatever they possibly could. But beyond that, hit me real quick with your final thoughts before we go to the half on what that does to the morale for each team.
I mean, I think I hit it right there already. Was that, you know, it really just comes down to now you have a couple of moments to just kind of bask in it, sit there with all the mistakes that happen at the very end, and how good Dopamine must feel now moving into a third map where they could possibly end this series right here.
Well, they very well could. It is 2-0. Just to catch their feelings, let's throw it back to Gio and the rest of the analysts to see what they had to think about that backdoor.
Guys, this is not what we were expecting originally. I want to start by talking about Dopamine's dominance in Nepal. They had this amazing team play going on. You know, how are they faring against these World Cup players?
I feel like you can tell that Dopamine has had a little bit more time over the last couple of weeks to play together. They know each other in and out. They can immediately read what all their teammates are going to do, and it's just so much smoother the way they're playing. Elo.Tick have had some really great moments. They've had moments of almost dominance, especially as we looked over on Rialto and on Village on Nepal as well. But it's not always there. Once they start losing momentum, once a couple team fights start and go against them, they start making some random team comp swaps to try and come up with something, and that doesn't work. So they might move on to something else. They haven't quite settled down yet. They're not actually being able to just take a breather, take a moment to focus, and that's feeding so much over to Dopamine. Once the momentum goes against Elo.Tick, they can't recover.
Nari, something you really wanted to see that you said in the pre-game segment coming out from Elo.Tick was having this Pharah play. How has Obling's Pharah been living up to your expectations?
Yo, Obling's Pharah, like, I felt bad for him on Alto when they were holding and Kara was just shutting him down on that loose. that broke my heart because that Farah pick was so good coming up against that strong 3-3 composition, and he just kept getting shut down. His barrages, he wasn't getting too much value out of them, a couple kills here there, but he wasn't performing as well as he could have been. And it's really surprising because all they really had to deal with him was a Moira whose right click is infinite, as we know. And even then she wasn't she was like, Moira's job is not to focus the Farah. So Farah had free reign in the sky, and they just weren't able to capitalize on it. And that was just really unfortunate.
It's a shame. But I mean, speaking of Rialto, we saw this really interesting thing come out from the side of Elo. We had Carnifex on the Bastion, but while the attack was going really well for a while, it got to a point where Dopamine were able to stall them. Vals, what would you have liked to have seen happen to keep that momentum going?
I feel like they need to give a bit more of a helping hand to Sean P. Sean P is doing a great job. I don't want to detract from that. Really well on the role you have to play as a diva player in some of these tank-heavy compositions, especially against the Sombra. He's constantly with the team, peeling for the supports, keeping the Rhine alive, managing the defense matrix well, trying to keep everyone up. But also, he's constantly having to turn around and look in the back line. Where's IDXD? Is he hiding around this corner? Is he hiding around this corner? Is he on that health pack? Having to constantly scout out the Sombra while protecting the rest of your team, it's putting a lot of strain on Sean P here. And I feel like if the rest of Elo.Tick can support him a little bit better, that they can turn that around to start punishing IDXD more and start limiting how effective the Sombra has been for Dopamine. Because it has been. When they're not running this triple tank, triple support comp, when they pull out the Sombra as well, it's looking really good for Dopamine, a lot better than we saw against Eminence. And that's been a huge part of Elo.Tick's undoing.
I mean, you were a big fan of the fact that Elo.Tick were even making these big changes to their composition in the first place, right?
Yeah, they did start settling down a little bit on Rialto, but we still saw a couple moments where they'd come up with some strategy, put it out for one push, it would fail, and then move on to something else. I feel like now they've got half time, they can sit, just chat for a couple of minutes, take a bit of a breather, get their heads back in the game, and then we should see a bit more of a calmer Elo.Tick with regards to how they're changing their strategies, and that will play into their favor. Now they know what to expect from Dopamine.
Having seen what we've seen so far, maybe some things coming out that we didn't quite expect to see, are you both still sticking with your original predictions?
No.
Oh, wow, okay.
Okay, first and foremost, we both said 3-1. We're both wrong immediately. Straight at this point, it's already a 2 for oh wow, brain dead. Dopamine, thank you. Wow. It's already a 2 score for Dopamine. So their dominant performance has just been so good. We were talking about Elo.Tick and the fact that they haven't had a lot of time to scrim, and they've got these individual players that are getting good plays off, but their synergy's just not there. And I'm so impressed with Dopamine. I'm going to call it a 3-2 for Dopamine. Hell yeah.
Fouls.
I don't share Naomi's. I'm not a turncoat. I'm gonna put it brief. As much as I love Dopamine, as much as I love some of the plays who are coming out, IDXD in particular is having a great game on the Sombra. Mezic's doing really well on the Reinhardt too. I still believe. I feel like if Elo.Tick can gather themselves, they can pull themselves together. They can make this a much more competitive match. And I think they can pull off the reverse sweep. I feel like 3-2 Elo.Tick, we're going the full distance.
I feel like we've got a true fan and a glory supporter here. Only one of them can be right, but we've got to send it back to I Hold Shift and Herix to actually find out the truth.
If there's anything I can count on from Vowels, it's the fact that he will not be a turncoat. He knows where he grew up, and his morals stand strong. Herix, how do you feel, I mean, we just went on a wild ride there in Rialto.
Yeah, I had to go ahead and take a sip of water. I had to take a breath as well. I mean, I definitely wasn't expecting that either. But you know what? I'm gonna even combat what our analysts say. I know I didn't get asked. I know Gio didn't ask me, but I'm gonna give my answer anyways. I think best case scenario for Elo.Tick, this is a 3-1. I think this could very well be a complete shutout by Dopamine. I think they're playing so well. I think that, the way that they've been able to shut out Progi and the impact that Progi has on this roster and what he means for this roster as well means a whole lot going into ensuing maps, especially as you go over to Assault, where you can definitely see a lot of GOAT style play. We're going to certainly look at Elo.Tick probably trying to pull out a map where maybe that won't have a profound effect, maybe with some more verticality, maybe less of those corners or if they do play into it, try to play the way that they played on Village, you know, the way that they started out, where they had that huge 98-0 swing at the beginning of that round, and they were able to win that one out as well over time. So I think that's probably their best look as they go to Assault. When they go over to Control again, you know, if it comes to that, they will have another shot. But I think while we move to, you know, another payload map like a hybrid, obviously that will come up, or even Assault, these are dangerous, dangerous, dangerous maps that Elo.Tick is going to be hard pressed to win here. And I don't even think that we'll be able to make it to a control map given the performances that we've seen so far today.
I think at the back end, though, I'm going to play, a little bit of a devil's advocate against that, is the fact that, maybe this halftime came at the exact right time for Elo.Tick. I mean, we talk about the experience and the veteranship on that team, pending that the conversations that have happened over the last 6-7 minutes were positive and constructive, and they're still going through this as a 6-man front, and they're
You
not
have to
all
expect
fighting
that
with
they
one
are
another.
too.
Yeah, you would have to, right? But there's a lot riding on this for these teams. We've talked about the experience that they've had, and they've been on those, stages to prove themselves. This is still one of those stages, though, for them, and you have to figure that if they were to go down to the losers bracket this early, it would feel like a disappointment for them.
Yeah, so we are going to be moving on to a map where, going into your favor, we
Yeah.
do get away, maybe at least to a degree, away from some of the positives that we've seen from the compositions and this play style that we've seen from Dopamine. I think this is a good moment for a big turnaround for Elo.Tick, and if they can gain some momentum here and regain their confidence, I think that's probably the biggest thing, is regaining their confidence. Then they can probably do well. I mean, we're going to more than likely see them make a hard switch, trying to play more dive, especially on point A, where Progi can pull out the Winston. That's where we saw them having a really good look on point A on Rialto. So I would definitely think that that would be the case here, playing off the soft dive, playing off the coordination that we see from Carnifex as well, and then playing into that as much as humanly possible. Maybe you still play 3 tank with like a Hammond or something. We know that they like Hammond, but oftentimes it's without the Diva. So maybe not if they wind up playing that way, because obviously you need the Diva with the Winston for that dive. But some kind of dive setup to play off a soft dive, force a rotation from a pretty static type of composition that I expect, probably going to see an Orisa here from Dopamine. And then really kind of force a bad move rotationally out from, one of the sports that can't really be mobile, which at the moment is probably going to be Ruby on the Ana, and then just make an impact off of that and then see where you can go from there. I think that's their best bet to get some momentum early, regain that confidence, then move on to point B with, maybe some ultimates in tow, or some kind of ability to win that fight with some gusto, so that they can come back into this matchup and really kind of feel themselves a little bit better, so that they can move forward into another map where it's going to be very, very difficult, especially considering if they win this one, it's going to be map choice here on out to Dopamine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of pressure here. There's a lot at stake. And I think that's something that we probably haven't touched on enough, is the fact that every single one of these maps is going to be choice for Dopamine. And we've already seen what they can do with Reinhardt setups against Progi. If they could continue to have that as a back pocket strategy and something to kind of lean back on, this will be probably easy takings for Dopamine. That's a big reason why I think this could be 3-0 or 3-1 in this matchup.
Totally different dynamic when you're looking at a 2-0 versus a 1-1, especially going into an Assault map that, it has that kind of nomenclature being the Temple of Draw Anubis at certain points in time. But I want to go back to Sanctum real quick, because that was the one time that we saw Dopamine not running goats initially, and we saw Carnifex using things like the Tracer. We saw that the Genji was brought out. We saw ID trying to play Widow, and after that first initial fight, which kind of flopped like flan in a cupboard for the side of Dopamine, that Elo.Tick really did have a leg to stand on up until the goat swap. So when you take a look at a map like this, you already mentioned that it does favor them, but do you kind of feel like if it continues to go that way, where they can get away from these goats comps that they're facing up against, that this really could potentially have the mindset for a reverse sweep?
Yeah, I mean, if they can get away from it, if maybe they get lucky on a map choice, or they can pull away from certain issues that can come out, or rather that can arise from certain maps, where they can pull through and, like, maybe the next one is Hollywood and they get lucky with that pickup, and they can go and play more dive and play what they're more comfortable with and what we might see them be more be stronger at. I mean, certainly if they look good on the dive here and we see Hollywood come out, I would definitely say that there's a good shot at seeing them come through yet again with that possibility for a reverse sweep here, and we could see them moving on. Control map is, one of those things where it could be a big toss up. We'll have to see how Lijiang Tower or whatever they have winds up going, but I think that's certainly a possibility for them. However, I think that that's just probably not going to be the case. And if we do see this going into a next map, I think the possibility of a King's Row is just way too high. And I think if it does get to that point, then you're still having that same worry. Mezek getting resources. If he continues to have that, Progi is going to have a tough time. Yes, they might go over to their kind of backhand pocket strat of utilizing the Hammond in a goat style composition where I know our guy Trenok is certainly going to hate the fact that I said Hammond and goats together in the same sentence, but I mean, it's basically a premise of a triple tank, hard aggression, staying together. But again, we've already seen the adaptation from Dopamine. We know that they have a way to deal with it. So if they can continue that, again, I just think Dopamine has all the tools available. I think this is their game to lose if there is a team that has that ability right now.
Are you much of a poker player here, X?
Not really. Can't say I am, unfortunately.
But to say, it kind of seems like the cards have already been dealt. And
yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you what hand you think Dopamine was holding, because I would say at least a full house or greater. I play a lot of Texas Hold'em personally. Maybe we'll get some time, outside of Overwatch, and I'll steal some of your money.
well, here's the thing. I mean, I might not know much about poker, but I'll tell you what, this seems like such a stacked deck that I feel like it's bending the rules where they're just holding full hand of aces. I mean, that's how confident I think that they should be in this setup, because yes, they're up 2-0. They're onto a map that probably doesn't favor their side and everything, but if they can pull this off, obviously huge amount of confidence boost going into another map where, certainly as you look forward, you're looking at the potential, or rather the ensuing inevitability of playing Shoes Money Crew, easily one of, if not the strongest teams in this bracket, where you're going to need that confidence. You're going to need that ability to tell your team and be able to speak confidently and saying, we can do this, we can take this team on. And then maybe, down the line, if you wind up dropping that map, you have to play this team again at some point, maybe. I mean, that's a very strong possibility as well. So then you set yourself up again for confidence down the line. So that's worst case scenario, I think, for them, having to deal with that losers bracket and force confidence that in that avenue and everything. But I think going forward, that if you wind up losing this map, it's okay. Yes, you drop one. Yes, it's a setback, but I think it's a good opportunity for them to start taking these maps in their favor, where they obviously can take whatever pick that they want to go down, and they can start forcing these situations that we've already seen out of Rialto and some of the maps that we saw in Nepal, where we see the Goats force, we see them going through and being essentially unstoppable in a lot of regards when they empower Mezek against Progi.
Yeah, I mean, we keep kind of, painting the picture that Elo.Tick's backs are up against the wall, but on the other side, I mean, they still have another, lower half of the bracket if they were to fall to continue to go through. Dopamine, on the other hand, is this, you mentioned having the flexibility and the breathing room. You just try to figure out something cheeky maybe that might potentially work, or is this like, it's not obviously a do or die thing, but we'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity for Dopamine to kind of play around with what they have. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. There is a player resetting their router real quick, a couple of connection issues. So we'll be back in just a minute to get our Assault map of Anubis set up for map number 3 just after this.
How we roll, man. This how we rock. This how we win. This how we roll, man. This how we rock. This how we win. This how we roll, man. This how we rock. This how we win. This how we roll, man. This how we rock. This how we win.
on that Widow, very notable from their performance during the World Cup. Had a couple of pretty standout moments and looking for a way to set themselves up here in the Overwatch Open playoffs here in the round 2. Again, Dopamine has been a very, very formidable force so far, almost unexpectedly so far, as our analysts did give this headway over to Elo.Tick, but a lot of patience here, Hurix, from the side of Dopamine, not really committing as of yet, and look at this. It will be the early blast from Obling taking him down, and that might be enough, but no, Bavar's able to find Brogy, and Mezek's in the backline looking for a way, but he gets discorded and taken down very quickly, and Kega able to snipe out again, a headshot out of Bavar, and that's going to be enough to turn this first offensive attempt aside. Looking pretty good so far for Elo.Tick.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Dopamine can adjust their strategy to force off the pressure that comes out instantly from Obling. He has a tire here, and I think this is a good way for them to maintain their composure. If they can get value off of this rip tire, again, slow things down, take more time off the clock, we're looking at a very different Elo.Tick here, and I think that could continue with this level of performance.
Oh, and Mezek wanted to dive the platform again, but gets met with a lot of aggressive and card effect. Sniping from the backside, able to take out the mech and help out with some damage again against other players on top of that. And once again, I mean, there's no rip tire even needed. Obling holds on to it the entire time, and now they've built up an infra site as well. The only thing that is even close to being used for the side of Dopamine is the nano boost.
Oh, that's another oof right there. A nice little halt from Progi sets things up, and now that he has the space, now that he has, you know, no more Reinhardt just breathing down his neck, he can start making the plays that we know Progi is capable of making. And this is really, I can't commend them enough for this map selection. I mean, we saw it coming, sure, and I'm sure Dopamine saw it coming as well, and I'm sure they saw exactly the type of compositions that they were going to see coming as well. But the way that they've been able to execute everything has been everything, you know, close to perfection here.
Mezek once again driving into the backline. Now Obling will pull the trigger on the rip tire, and we'll find Kara, so that speed boost, heal boost on the Lucio, no longer there, and he'll have to actually find a second kill on the Bavar, make that a third. All of these little mines coming out, and card effects will clean up the last one, which is Ruby, who was posing for that headshot, and took that one straight in the cheek. And still now a minute, 10 seconds, and no one's really even touched the point yet, but now look at this, Hurix. 5 of the 6 ultimates are just about ready to go.
Yeah, they went in for a dry fight there. They knew that they were going to lose some time on that one, but they haven't been able to find any kind of foothold. We'll have to see if maybe this is enough firepower behind the possibility of a nano blade here if they have to.
Oh, but they use an EMP and big self-destruct ultimates, but don't find anything. And card effects! Goodness gracious, finds 2 huge headshots. Will put himself in the kill feed. He still has now another infra site. And again, those were 2 game-changing ultimates coming out from Dopamine, and they didn't find anything.
Yeah, they needed to find value instantly there. By being so aggressive, you have to set the tone, or else you'll allow just enough time for Progi and the rest of Elo.Tick to set up. We saw Obling get into position, and they were able to deal with them. Oh!
Big shots from card effects will force Mezek a little bit earlier than he wanted to in the Primal Rage, but Bavar, in the meantime, has found 2 victims to his Nano Blade. Mezek trying to get himself back involved. ID on the point, and that might just be enough. It's just card effects with his support of Bims trying to hold this one off. Sean P will be anti-nated. They'll delay this as long as possible. The good news is they got it to overtime, but the bad news is they still have to defend for a chance to put this one away early. Otherwise, we will see them go back on the offensive once again. But yeah, 4 minutes on the clock. Here we go.
Yeah, here's more than likely the goat swap here, and it's the traditional one at that. Dopamine ready to fire right in. Carnifex, Obling. We see the Sombra Doomfist. We see the Hammond. They're going for full chaos. This is South American style, brought to you in EU.
Yeah, but Sean P, once again, on the wrecking ball, will distract and be more than that as he actually pushes Bavar all the way over to the left-hand side, making him take the scenic route on the way in. Obling, rocket punching his way through on the newly acquired and flexed on Doomfist, has done a lot so far with that, as Kega has found himself a damage orb to the face of Bavar as the rest of Dopamine will retreat. So once again, early aggression from Dopamine met with a formidable resistance from Elo.Tick.
Yeah, this will force changes, which is interesting because Bavar is going to be going to Tracer of all heroes that they would go to counter. They're going to go into something that can be easily countered by a Brig swap at some point should they want to do that. They have the opportunity to as well.
Kara wants the speed boost everyone on the right-hand side for them, but it's met on the back end of a nicely placed Riptire from Carnifex, which finds both of the frontliners that he needed to. It's just Setlit, and he's left wondering what went wrong as he's running with his tail between his legs. Progi quick to try to pursue, but will only be able to do it so far. The thrusters will get him away, but goodness, once again, we saw the committal call come in and met with immediate resistance. Carnifex that time with the nice Riptire to find too.
I'm really kind of wondering what they think they want to do with this Tracer here. I mean, he can get one shot by Carnifex, by Obling, by Konga. We already saw him losing out that 1v1 when he went and dived Konga in the backline by himself. So this is going to be a high risk, high reward Tracer pick.
Well, it's been mostly met with no reward, at least as of yet. 46% on that pulse bomb. Meanwhile, the Valkyrie has been popped for Bims, but maybe a bit prematurely, as no one has committed yet. The offensive Dopamine trying to set up on the left-hand side. In this temple, now moving forward is IED with Mezik's shield right behind him. The Graviton Surge coming out. Ooh, but it doesn't actually find the Minefield coming out as well, but will be taken down by the self-destruct that came from Setlit's hands. The Meteor Strike coming in, but Oblin could not find himself any targets, so we'll just use it to reposition. Now it's going to be Carnifex with another Riptire. Dancing and weaving, trying to find a target, but will not find anything. And now the Transcendence. The defense needs it to stay alive. Res is Carnifex. They need that offense to get through, that damage. But now Mezik, he's got the Earth Shattered, does not find anything with it, but doesn't make too much of a difference. The most of this offense had already been turned aside. Para's doing, again, that little wiggle and dance right on the outside of this entrance from the left-hand side of it, but not able to find much. IDX near full charge, but also near full dead, and will be taken away. A minute on the clock left for this push.
Doomfist lull right there on that one. Overling came in and just set everything off of the respawn and pushed Mezik around a little bit too, and he wasn't able to find the value out of his shatter that he really kind of wanted and needed there. But the longevity of that fight led to ID coming out with a Graviton, and we'll have to see if maybe he can actually get value with that one this time around. Tracer already down again, kind of questioning that one a little bit, but maybe they can throw a little kind of straight pulse bomb into the Graviton that comes out. At least if they can get away alive and long enough to actually reestablish themselves and regroup long enough to actually get onto the point at all.
Well, they're going to be without an Earth Shatter for this next push, and likely without a sound barrier unless Kara can find a way to farm that one up mid-fight. They will have the other 4 available. They really need a big pulse bomb onto a support of choice. But look at this. It's Oblong in the back line, taking down Ruby immediately. They do find Carnifex with that pulse bomb aforementioned. But Kanga in the Transcendence, as they try to get the res off, they will. Again, Carnifex back in this fight. But still, who can sit on the point? Progi's dealing with a couple of bodies in front of him, and now finally, Sean Boo's coming in, will pile drive Kara back up, but he does get that aforementioned sound barrier to keep them alive, but it only goes so long as the Minefield is there to distract and cause a little bit of an obstacle course on the point. IDX will give it a go, overtime fading away, another pile drive will push them up, and, well, Elo.Tick will sustain the defense and find themselves a very much needed first map in this set.
Doofus is such a good hero on that second point. I mean, you can find so much value with, you know, all the different walls, you know, the way that the whole section of that map is kind of closed in. You know, best case scenario, you find a wall, they get killed with a single Doomfist punch, right? Worst case scenario, you throw them off the point, they're not in the fight anymore anyways. So, I mean, there's so much value to be had with a Doomfist on that point, and the way that Obling was playing it was, you know, top notch, was able to deal with the inherent issue of Mezik. I mean, on the Reinhardt, that's been a problem for them time and time again. Now, though, remember, this is that thing that we talked about, that dynamic of when you start off on Temple of Anubis as expected, yes, that's going to be a good turnaround point for you coming out of the half, already being down 2-0. You've been blasted on Goats comps all day long. That's a great map for you to finally get some confidence back and turn things around with playing a lot more dive, a lot more chaos style compositions. But now everything is back in Dopamine's hands. Every single map from here on out will be their choice. So obviously they're going to be staying away from maps like Hollywood if they can. They're going to be going over to something more like King's Row, as I already talked about, you know, before we even got into Temple of Anubis. It does look like that is going to be the case. It looks like we are indeed going into King's Row, as we mentioned. And again, this really plays into Mezek and allowing him to be on the Reinhardt, allowing him to show out against Progi with the different resources that they're giving to Mezek, and how Progi has been time and time shut out, not just by the fact that the compositions may not just play into the Reinhardt duel, which is certainly a factor to a degree, but even more than that, Mezek has had time and time again opportunities where he's taken where he's basically put Progi on full tilt at this point, where he's been able to come out and 1v6 on more than one occasion, namely that last fight on Rialto, where we saw a huge defense by Mezek coming out, where Progi should have been able to make a stop there, but he just wasn't in his own head at that point. So Kings Row, great option for Dopamine to pick. I think that's the great pick, or a great pick for them. I think this is a good opportunity for them to close out 3-1 here and for Dopamine, in my opinion.
So if you're taking a look at this, Elo.Tick has to figure, obviously, they're going to Kings Row. It's going to be mostly a GOATS comp. What options does Elo.Tick have to try to counter on a map like Kings Row? Will we expect to see things like a May, or we see something a little bit more straightforward like a Pharmacy combo for them?
I would say shy away from the Pharmacy. I mean, you can play it, certainly. It's definitely an option on the first 2 points, I would say, are probably where it's stronger, given the sight lines and the way that the verticality of the map is there. But I would say your best bet is to try to create artificial isolation of Mezek. And the ways that you can do that are one that you mentioned, May, where you can just wall him off and then force him away from the rest of his team, or you can utilize Doomfist, something that they've already done, something that they've already found success with. And if they can kind of find that same impact with the Doomfist by throwing Mezek off, or like launching him into the air, where the rest of his team now is very unsafe behind no shield, no kind of shield, because my boy's up in the sky. I mean, that's a great opportunity for them to take advantage. So I would say those would probably be the first two that I would look at. Yes, there are the options of, Pharah, maybe just play, that kind of oppressive style of like Hanzo, Junkrat, or something like that. That's definitely an option for them as well. But I would say the one that I would go for personally would be May or Doomfist, and play into that as much as I possibly can to try to throw Mezek off of his game, force them to play like a dive or something where obviously they just haven't been able to be as proficient with as with their GOATS comp.
Right. And even with that, I was, really admiring the kind of handoff, the trades, the baton passing between the Doomfist played by Obling, but also Sean P using the Wrecking Ball. Kind of, Sean P would go in, Obling would follow up, one would back up, the other one would just kind of a whole cycle of death and a lot of distraction being used in disruption. So as we go through, the defense has set themselves up. Yeah, and as you would imagine, it's going to be the 3-3 comp with GOATS, but using the Ana this time around.
Sombra. We forgot the Sombra. I don't know how I forgot the Sombra. I talk about Sombra all the time, but Sombra is another one of those that can really kind of cause a lot of problems for a main tank by just forcing down the D.Va or forcing out the Zarya, just taking away some of that utility that is required for the Reinhardt to have that impact.
Oh, look how spread apart everybody is, though. This is just havoc right around the Omnic statue. Going the way of Elo.Tick, though, is, again, this Pharmacy that did come out for Bins and Obling found a lot of sustained damage, while the rest of Mezek and the rest of the boys, they were looking for something on the far side of the hotel, and were able to find a couple, but the force of this damage-dealing duo is just too strong. And Carnifex, you mentioned on the Sombra, is able to clean up the last 2 kills, but that was on the back end of a lot of damage from Obling. He's on fire with 86% charged already on the barrage.
Yeah, I mean, we will see a swap here from ID where, yes, they're going to go ahead and pop up the Sombra. They're going to go Sombra v Sombra. I think this is pretty smart of them, because now they can kind of force Carnifex into a bad position if they play well together, if they coordinate some of that aggression to Carnifex and allow time for ID to get into position where he can find that killing blow. But without that, it's going to be a real duel of the Sombras to determine who's going to get control in these fights.
We're in the street space. Sean P comes down, and ooh, the big Bionade comes out right after the pile driver came through, and Obling, he's damage boosted, and he's loving it. The Minefield's able to find 2. That's on the Babar and Ruby, so it finds value for picking up the supports, which will mean that all of these frontliners are left pretty much on their own accord. Setlit figured that one out on the bad side of it. A very nice controlled fight, and no ultimates had to be used besides the Minefield.
I wonder if you play like Soldier here or something, or a McCree. I mean,
Something.
because they don't have a diva, right? And Soldier's actually really good at just tearing apart a Hammond, and then you have the other ability to deal with Obling, and it's not really something that Carnifex can just take down, whereas McCree, if you miss your shots, you can just get 1v1 by a Sombra. So I wonder if that's a possibility for them here.
So the EMP comes out, the Valkyrie as well. Now the barrage from Obling, Elo.Tick using a lot, and what does it find? It finds enough space to push this payload almost all the way there. Still has a little bit further to go. Kara, in desperation, will use the sound barrier. They don't want to give up this point yet, does Dopamine. Now, but sleeping, taking a nap at the wrong time as Babar will wake up and come back in, able to put a really clutch bubble onto Kara, who's being annoying, but there's just not enough health in the pool, and he will be taken down. Last player left alive was Babar, who will be also figured out and taken away. Staggered around now is Dopamine. The payload pushes through point B, and Elo.Tick almost all 6 on fire as they try to finish this one out.
Playing into that chaotic hand, that's what's gonna work for them here. I mean, obviously that's their best look, and we're seeing the Pharah still out, still no inherent counter really, other than, you know, like a diva or something to deal with him. It's really gonna come down to Ruby if he can maybe get a coalescence quickly and put some pressure out onto that Pharah.
Possibly setting things up with the EMP. IDX has one, waiting for it. The minefield, though, being used right on top of the payload, the self-destruct and the barrage, but it gets completely countered. It's Setlit. He's able to find 4. Thanks to that EMP, no shields were up to deny it, and it was just in a really good spot. Sean P's the last one left, and he'll dive on down. A very nice setup there, EMP self-destruct combo.
Yeah, there's really I mean, seeing a Hammond die that late is barely a stagger, but the fact that he is going to go over to Diva now requires some time to get into position, so that's okay now for Dopamine. They really need this Graviton here, though, and they need to make sure that Sean P, they don't get caught off guard by the fact that he changed to Diva, and he can really, you know, have an impact by eating this up really quickly here.
Okay, well, it is the Coalescence and the Graviton Surge can be used for Dopamine. One of the two will be there for the Nano Boost onto Obling. Now the Coalescence in the backside of it for Dopamine. Elo.Tick not going away as of yet, though. Frogy falling low, but has 2 supports pocketing him up, but he even still falls. He wanted to charge, but did not have enough time to move through. Fortunately enough, Obling is full charge on the Zarya, and that's going to be enough damage for Elo.Tick to take down 2. And that with Ruby, well, Sean P actually was able to chase down ID as well. So a delayed stagger coming out. Dopamine, you can see, are backing up, waiting for all 6, but they don't have much time. They need to get here as this payload is taking its last little swing downhill. Now, the touch. Trying to get back on through, but all they have is the Earth Shatter. The EMP comes out. The Graviton Surge as well for Elo.Tick. Can the message get this Earth Shatter off? He's looking for an opportunity, and there it is, and it finds a couple, but the Self-Destruct will zone away and take down Mamar. And on top of that, there's an Elo coming through, trying to find the kills. A huge anti-nade coming back in, which might be enough to get this fight going, and it's a 4-on-4 on point. Obling does not want to get off this, but as I say that, he gets sound waved down the drain, and the rest of Dopamine are following right out of spawn to clean this one up. A big play from Kara as Obling was looking to put all that damage in fully charged, and now the stagger is coming through. Kara wants to chase, but will think the better of it.
Back-to-back hero plays there. We saw the EMP deny Progi of his Earth Shatter. Fire right back with a huge Conga Biotic. Now, getting into this next fight, we can already see them wanting that. The hunger is there. Carnifex dangerously close to yet another EMP.
Self-destruct coming out, Frogy. He will be boosted, but Obling falls in that self-destruct. The Coalescence from Ruby, but the EMP is used, and that means there's going to be no more abilities being used, and Medzik desperately needed that shield. Frogy with a nice fire strike onto ID, wants to slap through Kara, and will use the hammer, but will not actually find much on the back end of that Earth Shatter, but do they have enough numbers? Sean P will try to zone everybody away. Setlit will deny it, but though he was anti-dated, not able to come through, but Medzik with a big uppercut. Take down Vims, but I don't know if there's enough. It's just ID trying to delay. The sound barrier coming out will keep him alive, as well as Kara, who's now contesting. The respawn proximity, they need it to come back through, but here are the rest of the numbers from Elo.Tick trying to finish off these squishies. Babar will throw out a Graviton Surge, but they don't have the damage, and another nice Manic Nade! Sean B just able to thrust back on out, but Frogy was popped up and sent off the map by Medzik. Now the EMP's being traded out. The kill feed's still reading red, and that will be enough, it looks like, to completely delay everybody away, and Elo.Tick are able to finish off the push.
What an effort there. I mean, right at the end, we saw it was just so close. I mean, even if Doomfist would have been able to, I mean, Mezek could have had a pop-off moment there if he would have been able to just stay alive just for a second longer. But again, the denial, the oppression, or rather the suppression, I guess is the better term here, from the Carnifex on the Sombra, that EMP denied him of that possibility, couldn't use that last ability that he might have needed to be able to get that ult off and then actually be able to press the button, obviously. But again, just heroics on both sides. We're seeing such pivotal plays just answered by yet another pivotal play. I mean, I talked about it already going into, that last fight where right before that we saw, an insane setup to allow Progi to get a nuts Earthshatter booped up and then EMP'd, so it's denied outright. All of a sudden, now you think Dopamine's got it, right? Kanga comes in, instantly, huge biotic grenade swings things back in their favor. Kara says no thanks, basically just drops someone off the side of the map, and now all of a sudden Dopamine has the opportunity to take it. So I mean, this back and forth that's created by these players, just so mechanically talented and know exactly how to play in these situations where the stress is at an absolute high. Everything is just so chaotic, especially with Doomfist being played here in these scenarios as well. It just lends to the chaos. It becomes even harder to play in those situations. But a minute 25, a capture by Elo.Tick on King's Row, that's a decent time for them to set up and feel good about, where they have that option to go into, go past regulation and start getting some more points generated in, further rounds here. But instantly, it's Dopamine again on their classic Sombra. I mean, this is what we saw in Rialto, and now we have to wonder, are we going to see that same thing with, ID sneaking a payload?
Carnifex, though, for Elo.Tick playing a Sombra of their own, scouting out everything. Progi on the backside of the Omnic statue on the Winston wants to find a way to dive on him, but he's being focused very, very hard. Now Sean P wants to file up. Pile driver coming in. Will pop up a couple. Biotic nade throwing in, but again, everything's sustained, and Dopamine still feeling pretty healthy. Meanwhile, Carnifex has been found by Sept. Will back him up. Ooh, Progi's the first one to fall. Bar was nearly full charge, and now they've got numbers. What advantage will they push? They need to find a way to get on point, and Mezek will put both big Reinhardt feet right on top of it. Hobbling now, coming in with the dumb fist. Wants to drive on in, and will rocket punch and as well find the Slasmic Slam, but not find enough damage to find a kill. And Setlin's able to find the trade. Sean P now on the Wrecking Ball is the only one who can really serve any kind of distraction. Progi's back, but the kills on both supports have already come through, so there's no healing whatsoever for this side of Elo.Tick, and Dopamine just need to clean up the big bodies of Progi and Sean P, which they will do, and they will find this first point in a very quick fashion.
Again, this Sombra duel is so important to keep your eye on. We saw the denial of Sean P's re-engage. As he dove up, he wanted to kind of come back down and crash, but again, I mean, this is akin to the, Tracer duels of old, where we see them kind of in these little flank battles trying to vie for space and, zone control for their team, so that they have other avenues, other points of regression, other ways to attack. These things are so important, and the Sombra is a big player for that.
Now, trying to move on through. The EMP does come out for Elo.Tick, looking to make the best of it. Upland is able to take down his counterpart of the bar, moving on forward. Progi slept his Setlet, but immediately will get back up down. EMP in response with the Coalescence. How about turning that one aside? The Earthshatter as well. Kara's actually able to find 3 of those kills, make that 4 and 5, looking for the full team wipe. They'll do so. It started off with an aggressive EMP coming out of Carnifex, but it was met with equal resistance and then some from IDX and Ruby. They turned that one around, and Mezek again with the big Earthshatter. They're able to find that one nicely. The payload will move for free.
All right, ID setting up again on the high ground, expecting to see some health pack control, but he actually didn't go for it. Maybe he just doesn't want them to know that he's, postured up so aggressively here into their backline, rather atop their backline.
Looking to set that one up. The Nana Boost coming out onto Progi. The Graviton Surge will actually soak up 3, but the Biotic Grenade will keep everyone alive and also take away any healing from Mezek. He's able to sustain through it. Now, on the back end of that is the sound barrier for the side of Dopamine. Looking to find any kind of aggression they can. The Earthshatter, but it gets met with a shield from Progi, so nothing found. Now it's Progi again with an Earthshatter, and we'll find 3 stuns. The damage funneling right behind it, and Dopamine getting torn apart at the seams. Will be wiped in response, so the defense setting up nicely. 3 minutes and 30 seconds left on the sustain for point B.
And the Zen swap from Ruby. There it is. Conga was massive with that biotic, but Ruby wants to go Transcendence to deal with Obling. You know, they expect that he has the Graviton here. They'd be right about that, by the way. So having that as a possibility is going to be good for them long term. He makes the swap right back, though, as he notes, you know, maybe Transcendence isn't the best thing to go into an Ana that's been hitting all his biotics.
Absolutely, Graviton comes through with the self-destruct, but shielded out nicely. Progi also charged on through, but did they overextend? Dopamine wants to push them and make that a definitive yes, but the rally here is popped. The armor is appreciated, as well as the speed boost to tactically retreat back, but still trying to contest. This is Dopamine. Right on top of the payload is Mezek, trying to find a way in. The Fire Strike doesn't find much. You can see Progi still being focused, but he's happy to take that on the back end of a big Earth Shatter, the EMP. In response for Dopamine, but Bims escapes it and hits the sound barrier to keep everyone alive who was affected by that EMP, and now they will punish. Sept gets demeched. Progi's able to find Babar and Kara, and again, the defense sustains nicely. Setlet, he'll be the last one left. He's trying to get killed, and they will eventually take him down in a slight staggered fashion.
This is pretty much gotta be it right here. And I like the swap. I mean, the Sombra swap over to the Brigitte really enabled things. Carnifex was really smart to do that. I think it's a good answer now by ID to just give those resources to Mezek as much as you possibly can. Go toe-to-toe and see how you can perform with Mezek just popping off as he was in the beginning. Has this Earth Shatter ready. Can he get the value from it, though?
They do have the ultimate stick that could possibly be used. The Graviton Surge comes out for Elo.Tick. The Nano Boost as well with the Self-Destruct and the Sound Barrier in response for Dopamine. They find the first kill in this exchange. The big Earth Shatter is able to knock down not only Carnifex but Progi as well, and Mezek will help clean up a handful, and that's a full team wipe for Dopamine. They had a minute and 25 to push it through. They're going to do so with a little bit of time to spare, and now that minute and 25 that was banked from Elo.Tick, well, they're going to have to find any way possible to try to sustain that and keep them at advantage. It's going to be 2 minutes and 40 seconds worth of defense for Elo.Tick.
One thing that I really like seeing from Mezek is also his patience, his ability to maintain composure. Oh, he's going to need it here, though, as they're just running at him.
You have Rally here as they come down Main Street, but look how far up Carnifex is. You got to come on back, my friend. There is nobody there with you, and they will be able to do so. Now the Rally coming out in response once again. Dopamine is responding nicely. The Self-Destruct trying to create a little bit of space. We'll find more than that, though, as Babar will be a victim to that. Ruby standing still with the Transcendence to keep all of Dopamine healthy. They'll do that rather nicely. The Earth Shatter just to clean up some of these last couple of stray defenders. Push into a wall as Kanka and Wolf fall aside. Now it's just Sean P who will be demech and taken down. The payload will move. A minute and 54 seconds left.
It's so easy to get bloodthirsty in these situations as a Reinhardt where you're just, you know, popping. You know, he's got to be sitting there looking at his silver or gold damage medal right now and thinking he has to just hold W, but he's been able to kind of stay composed, and I like that from him.
And now, with only a Self-Destruct in the tank for the offense, they're facing 4 defensive ultimates. The Seismic Crash doesn't find much. Inga almost gets pushed off, but Carnifex will actually fall victim to the underside of King's Row. Progi trying to push people through will actually find a pin on the back end. That was on the Setlet. The Sound Barrier, though, being used. And again, Dopamine trying to respond with some aggression of their own. But Bims, he had his own Sound Barrier banked. The Graviton Search for the offense. Dopamine, is there any offense here to get the kills and find the damage? Carnifex is still alive. Bims is trying to keep everyone still healthy. Now, finally, Progi coming back in. He does not have an Earth Shatter. Needs to keep this shield alive as long as possible. He's the only player. Bims still alive. Tries to find a boop. Won't be able to do so, and he'll be taken down. And there it is, round 2 complete. We're met with a 3-3 so far.
Still, I mean, you have to remember, this is King's Row. Better time now set by Elo.Tick. That confidence has now returned. This is, a big thing that we were talking about. This is a big point that we had, was that, Elo.Tick, if they regain their confidence, if they feel, as solid as they probably did going into this matchup, as if that they have a shot once again, I mean, that's dangerous for them. I mean, that's dangerous for Dopamine, a team that went into this kind of an underdog. I mean, certainly an underdog, especially against, the big names that Elo.Tick is boasting. However, now, as we see the attack phase yet again from Dopamine in second round here, they're going to be going for that GOAT style. They're going to come out with basically the same setup that we would expect with that Sombra to start things off. And an instant adaptation. Carnifex says, you know what? maybe I didn't get enough value out of the Sombra. The hacks didn't really see any kind of lethality followed up with. So I'm instead going to go ahead and we're going to shut down Mezek. We're going to go with that same composition that they like to play to shut out Progi, and we're going to go with the setup with Carnifex, shield bashing, opening up with Conga, full charge right click with the Discord orb. Progi now has the ability to start jumping forward. He should be able to win out some of these duels a little bit more. And when you have only a minute that you have to worry about, that Reinhardt duel, winning that one time is huge.
Yeah, and you talk about other keys when it comes to only having a minute. How about the fact of having a fast charging ultimate that Brigida can provide if it does get scrappy on the point? But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The Dopamine offense trying to move on through. They will circle around the statue and look for a little bit of an entrance around the Alderworth Hotel. And they'll move on in, but almost immediately pushed aside as Sean P goes right on through a thrusters to try to delay as long as possible. Now 30 seconds left. Nobody on point as of yet. Trying to get ultimates charged, and Mezek falls. You talked about that Reinhardt battle, and that one goes the way of Elo.Tick, and now they're going to push forward. I don't think there's going to be enough time. This defense is looking good, and Kanga is actually able to find 2 kills while trailing away now just 10 seconds. It's desperation time for Dopamine. They need to find a way to touch. They're going to go in to get the Wrecking Ball. They're going to have the Lucio to speed boost. Mezek will touch. Overtime proc, Setlet pile driving in, but already Mezek has fallen. The Graviton Surge will keep people passed aside. And now finally the Transcendence. But is there enough numbers? The numbers are here for the side of Elo.Tick. And as I say that, Bims comes back through off his respawn. Kanga, Transcendence expires. The self-destruct coming out the zone, and it finds Setlet. Now a Graviton Surge coming out for Dopamine. Do they have the damage? Kara wants to come through the sound barrier, and we'll find it. Now the rally here. That's going to be huge if they can take down Obling, which they do. Sean P, one of the last ones left. Him and Bims are trying to hold on to this overtime, but it looks like they're going to be cleaned up. And that quick change from Dopamine will be enough to get themselves at least ticks, if not the full first point.
I want to remind everybody that Doomfist is a character. Just like a quick shout out, quick PSA to the fact that Doomfist exists in the current hero rotation, and Mezek makes excellent use of it there, as well as the main tank. Just a quick pop-off moment from him to come in and just kind of rampage through. Now, obviously, we're going to see Elo.Tick be aggressive, try to win out a quick fight here if they can.
They're using just about everything they had saved up. The Graviton Surge almost available for Obling at 100% now. Will he pop it? Yes, he will. Everyone's there. The seismic crash isn't going to be enough to find the damage. The self-destruct will be enough. And it looks like it's just IDX and Ruby left away. And all 6 players wearing red will take them down. Big Earth Shatter from Progi will be the setup with those ultimates. And that will be enough, but still, the damage has been dealt. I think Dopamine really came through and really set themselves up. They didn't have any time left at all. They're able to find the full first point, so it sits 4-3.
Yeah, just unfortunately, another setback for Elo.Tick. Just kind of one of those disappointing moments where you think, we had that. That was ours. That was completely in our hands, and we just weren't able to make sure that we had the target priority, make sure that we were ready to adapt to any kind of swaps that would come from the attacking side. You have to assume, that first of all, that Hammond's coming through, and certainly if Mezek goes out early, that Doomfist is coming your way. It's going to happen. We've seen it every single time that there was the availability. They always opt for him to swap to the Doomfist and start seeing if they can find some picks and maybe keep that ball rolling. That's exactly what they did. It was not anticipated, it seems, or rather they just didn't have the setup. We saw Conga just caught over by, I believe it was Lobby or something like that, where he was just kind of instantly just opened up on by Mezek. But here it is. It's Obling. He's coming out with the Doomfist himself, and it's not one of those, quick swaps where we see maybe can it have, an instant impact. Obling is starting off with it. Oh, maybe not, actually. He swaps over to the Zarya.
He was hearing you say that and wanted to get your hopes up, I think is what it was. He heard that public service announcement and said, all right, Herix, I'm coming in hard for you. Hotakad, just kidding. And now on to point immediately with the speed boost coming through. But ID, he found a hack off into one target, but immediately has to translocate away. Mezek still holding that shield up, drawing the line in the sand. But Carnifex comes through the shield bash to put it down. Still, a lot of health pools are low on both sides. No first blood as of yet. All of this time is ticking away, but can this side of Dopamine keep things contested? Can they keep themselves in a nice central spot? Ruby's going to help that out with the Coalescence, but Mezic's got anti-nated and was not able to find any of that healing, and Elo.Tick will find themselves 2 kills. They need to clean up the rest, though. There's still a couple formidable opponents, but now with 6 jerseys against 2, that will be enough to convert, and they've still got time on the bank. And it just needs to go a small instance. And I don't know if anyone from Dopamine is going to be able to contest in time. They're going to have to move quick here, Hearings.
Well, they have short spawn and they have a Lucio, so they can get back in there, but they don't have a lot of time to get into position. And now we'll see Elo.Tick with the opportunity to just drop a grab. So Sept really has to come up huge and eat that up, and he has no defense matrix left to do that. Oh, he gets it anyways! Are you kidding me?
Oh my goodness, what a play that was. The sound barrier now being used. Dopamine looks like they can potentially come in, but Mezic falls. Another nice bio-nade from Kanga. The EMP trying to set things up. Sept has himself a self-destruct kill inside the card effect, but the sound barrier from Elo.Tick is good, but they still need to find the kills. We're in overtime. This one very well could draw out if they don't find themselves the kills they need. And Elo.Tick, they're finally getting a couple of cleanups. It's just Ruby left alive, and they're able to sustain the healing, and that's all they need. Elo.Tick find themselves 2 straight maps. We're going to game 5.
I mean, they had such a huge advantage in that last fight. Any trade is in their favor because, I mean, their spawn is literally right there. You could spit and hit the payload from their respawn point. Whereas, you know, coming off of respawn, we saw Mezic trying to come back, but he's all the way back in the factory, all the way back, or rather in the foundry, sorry, at the end of the map. So there's no way he's going to be able to make it back. Nobody can make it back at that point. Even with a Lucio helping you, you won't make it back. So they had to win that fight outright. They had a great start with Sept somehow with like 10% of his defense matrix still just kind of flicked over and caught it, but it just wasn't enough. In the end, Elo.Tick was ready to win that one. We're moving on to Lijiang Tower. It's 2-2. Things all tied up here. Lijiang Tower is just, again, one of those maps where we could see some chaos come out from Elo.Tick. I mean, I wasn't a believer at first. I was thinking Dopamine was going to take it 3-0, 3-1, but they have turned things around in such a big way. We obviously are going the distance here, and Elo.Tick looks primed and ready to take this one and move themselves forward off of a ridiculous reverse sweep opportunity.
So let's just consider those first 4 maps as practice, okay? So when it comes down to just this last one, Elo.Tick has made some great adjustments, especially against the 3-3 Ghost comp that Dopamine has pulled out. What has been your biggest key to success as far as adjustments that Elo.Tick has made so far?
Ana. It has to be the Ana. I mean, Conga, I mean, one of the big issues starting out was the fact that they were playing, you know, Moira and trying to go head-to-head, even sometimes with, you know, no Diva, and allowing Mezic to get ahead with a lot of those opportunities where they could really kind of push Progi back, and he just wasn't able to do anything. He wasn't able to play the game, especially the way he wants to play it, the way that we know Progi can. And the moment that we saw them not only pick out the Ana, but start playing into it, I think that was a big turnaround. The fact that they start now communicating some of their cooldowns, they're playing into it a little bit. Conga is feeling a lot more confident with his setups and a lot more confident with some of his biotic throws where they're not getting eaten up. They're not getting, you know, defensed out by a barrier, projected or self or otherwise, you know. So I think he's finding openings, he's finding value. And while he may not be getting set up with, you know, humongous, impactful sleep darts, it's the impact of the bio grenade that I think has really shut things down for Dopamine, where Mezic has been on the back foot the last 2 maps in ways that we have not seen throughout this series.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And beyond that, Sean P has really played very nicely on the Wrecking Ball. I mean, he has been a very big disruptive factor, allowing, again, those big, as you mentioned it, bio nades to come out for essentially free. You throw it at everyone's feet, splashes up, and everyone gets wet with that purple. So, hey, not exactly the worst case scenario, but as we saw, the control side of things was so heavily dominated by that 3-3 Ghost comp from Dopamine, with the exception of one map, which it did look good for Elo.Tick, but to be fair, that was you know, one of those things that it seems like they were just really hitting on all cylinders. It looks like we're going to start things off here on Lijiang Tower on the night market. So what are you expecting comp-wise from both of these teams?
Goats. I'm expecting goats. I mean, there's the possibility of maybe going over to, you know, like the Doomfist. maybe a Hammond, maybe Sombra, but I'm expecting Goats. I'm thinking both sides. It's really just going to be a question of what support do they want to bring. Do they want to go Zenyatta and just go for that full shut down the Rhine? Or do they want to go for Moira and go for full, healing, sitting on a corner and hitting resets and trying to dominate by controlling point early? Or is it going to be Ana by allowing the other team to set up and then finding a hole to kind of just get in and execute off of the back of a biotic grenade, which will be a big shifter there for you to get in and have some impact as well. So I'm expecting Goats. I'm expecting some version of Goats from both of these teams. Already out of the gates, we can see both teams setting up Goats. So that certainly makes me feel more confident about what I was talking about and what I was picking. But we do see the Sombra. ID coming out once again with the Sombra. They definitely like to play this, playing the 3-2-1 or 3-1-2, depending on which order you like to put it in. But that's something they fall back on a lot, and they're going to play here again.
All right, we'll see if it's enough of a response to break apart Elo.Tick's 3-3 comp. Messick and Frogy start slapping at one another like two sorority girls. Just recently turned 21 into their first bar experience, but no kills yet. Trying to move on through. Full health for pretty much both sides, but the point, as it opens up, will be in favor of Elo.Tick first and foremost, at least positioning-wise. Messick gets mini-stunned, but we'll back up, get full healed, and try to recontest. But someone has to touch. Nobody touches. Elo.Tick gets the point for essentially free, so that's at least at the worst-case scenario, free capture percentage. And now looking for a way to break on in. Still trying to sustain their health pools as Dopamine. Babar needs a little bit of that healing because he's falling low, but the first hammer strike comes through, and now the Coalescence's trade. Flashing light starts to come on in, but yeah, it's just Carnifex, the only one falling victim. Sept gets C-Mech, Graviton Surge finds 3, and Brogy will try to pin up one, but gets swayed off a course, and he will be falling down. Messick, can he make a play? The sound barrier coming out. Oh, and Messick, he'll make a play by sacrificing himself. He'll push one off the map. So now it's just Babar, Ruby, and ID for Dopamine trying to clean up. Kara is also here. It's a 4-on-4 massacre. There are no big bodies here whatsoever besides the Zarya's. Now Setlet coming back in. The Earth Shatter, though, from Brogy that capitalizes on Babar, and Setlet will be D-Max. So Elo.Tick, they will sustain, and all that chaos, they get themselves a very surprising 50% capture.
Yeah, and the longer these fights go, it's just, better for Elo.Tick. They have more sustain because they're running the Brigitte instead of the Sombra. They have the rally now as well to come away with. They have the extra healing of just that flail whipping everybody around. So Elo.Tick just played into that and now have a hefty advantage already here on Night Market.
And it all comes down to that 50% was only because Dopamine did not touch and contest the initial opening of the point. That very well could be about 50% less to where it is right now. Graviton Surge, mimicked up with a big self-destruct, but doesn't find anything. Messick with an Earth Shatter, it finds 5! And now charging on in, they're able to take down 2 of the players from Elo.Tick, make that a 3rd. It's just Brogy wondering how he's going to keep this shield up. The answer is he won't be able to. And Dopamine, they'll be able to find the full team wipe, very nicely retaken on the back end of which was a good idea with the ultimate, but not quite realized.
And remember back to Nepal. Once Dopamine got control, it was always so difficult for Elo.Tick to retake. Now we'll have to see if maybe this momentum shift that occurred at halftime is enough for them to have figured things out and maybe see if they can get a retake here quickly.
Oh, the Earth Shatter comes out and finds 3, but the Transcendence is there to keep everybody healthy, and Messick is actually the first one to find a kill on a card effect. Frogy wondering how that went wrong. Obling trying to set himself up for some healthy damage, but I don't think anyone's going to be able to really contest this. The Earth Shatter comes out, but it's right in the face of Frogy's shield. He will fall for it, but it could have been a lot worse. So an ultimate will be used, and Sean P will also fall aside. The 93% stall for Elo.Tick now being met by the 42% and counting for Dopamine.
And on top of that, I mean, defense has the ability to kind of check things the way that they want to. Graviton Surge will likely come out very early on, and there it is. We're already down.
Oh, they're moving in with the self-destruct. There was no shield. What a brilliant shield bash from ID. Right into the face of Brogy. That was the only hope they had to defend against that self-destruct, and he was right there for the self-sealed bash to take that one up, and thank you very much, says Setlet, who finds himself on the big end of that team kill. Now up to 70% for Dopamine.
This is scary, though. I mean, they don't really have anything left. They need time for Ruby to generate that Transcendence, or they will lose out in a big combo here.
Huge seismic, or pardon me, pile driver for Sean P. Right into a minefield, but Dopamine retreats back to the point, and the sound barrier is also used to make sure everyone stays alive. Now the rally, plus the Transcendence, and a Graviton. Oh, it gets eaten up by the defense matrix of Setlet, so nothing found there, but still the numbers. Now Ruby with the Transcendence of their own, but has the damage already been dealt? Mezek and ID have fallen, so it's just up to Zarya to try to keep this defense alive, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. It looks like no, it is 99%, but the overtime will fade away, and now Elo.Tick up to 95%, and Setlet has to stay close because he's going to have to touch for overtime, but he commits a little bit maybe too soon. Now possibly coming through Sean with another pile drive, able to DMX Setlet. ID also falling. Mezek, oh, he gets pushed aside. He wanted to charge through, but he got pushed right into the wall, so that charge found nothing, and Elo.Tick find the first point, 100-99.
Let me spin you a tale about Nepal Village and how this was the exact same thing that occurred on that map, where we saw, you know, dominance being asserted early on with Elo.Tick, you know, off the back of some swung momentum. Sorry, something in chat came up, but off the back of some swung momentum, as I was saying, and being able to control and dominate here. And, you know, I'm thinking honestly that at this point, we're going to be seeing some big adjustments being made, I think, from Elo.Tick, at least in terms of what we saw on Night Market. Yes, they just were able to take that map. Yes, they still had that kind of same struggle of recontesting and getting control back and off the retake, where, you know, it was just the ultimate efficiency for a while there, where they just ran out of cooldowns, they ran out of options, and Elo.Tick was just saving ults for that, and there just wasn't enough time for Ruby to get the Transcendence. But here's the change that I'm talking about. Here's the big adjustment that I'm looking for, is Elo.Tick to take to the skies here. We see Obling already on this Pharah. I say stick to it here.
Yeah.
I mean, what you know about this team lends to your ability to have an impact on this hero, and I think this is such a clutch pickup from them, because knowing what you know, you're expecting ID to be on either Brigitte or you're expecting him to be on Sombra. You're not expecting him to be on the Junkrat that he's on right now, but or rather you're expecting the full goats to be instead ID on the Zarya, and there you go. So that's exactly what we're gonna get. But he's not gonna go for it. I think that would have been a decent play. They're gonna instead go goats v goats straight up, old style as well, 3-3 with the Moira.
And they're going to meet right on top of this information. Pagoda meeting with a lot of brute force. Sean P will actually push away Kara, who's struggling to get back to the fight, but will be able to do so, and will heal boost right behind it. Lots of trading at back and forth. The Kara, as almost calling his name meant he was empowered. He finds a little bit of a burst headshot onto Brogy, who will find the first kill in this exchange. Sean P will actually thrust down into the little digital lake and will sacrifice himself, as Dopamine will set up first and foremost on the point this time around.
And we'll see Obling just kind of playing with that high energy, wants to kind of keep this pacing where he's ahead of ID at the moment towards this Graviton Surge. Control went early to Dopamine. Now we'll have to see, can they retake now? It's a little different pacing here. Maybe they have the opportunity to win a fight now.
Oh, they're fighting close quarters, and that's going to set up Mezek for an Earthshatter that finds 3, and he gets straight into the back line and is able to take away card effects plus Obling as he returns Sean P. D-Mech, and will splash down once again. Dopamine only had to use the Earthshatter for that defense, and now using the rally just to set up their defense with extra health pool thanks to that armor.
Yeah, and Konga, he made a swap over to the Zenyatta so that they could have that extra lethality off the retake. And I think that's smart for them because they have struggled with that. But here, they don't have the Transcendence to battle ID's Graviton Surge.
And that's exactly what's used, and it comes out nicely to self-destruct. Just a bit short, though, from Setlet. Not able to find its way in the hallway. Now the Coalescence, the self-destruct coming up for Sean, which will find Ruby, and an Earthshatter for Brogy. Or pardon me, that was from Mezek again. He's able to find himself another Earthshatter very, very quickly, and it's able to, again, turn away a lot of this offense as they're able to find big picks again in the supports. No sustained healing means no real help to get this push moving.
Konga finally with the Transcendence. They have both support options at that as well. Bim's online with the beat drop, but they have to take a different approach here, I think. I mean, you have the ability to kind of go into White Room if you want, but I think take this out into the open. Try to pull things out so that your Zenyatta can just start hitting heads.
Oh, and how about Chompy coming in with a huge pile driver as well. Sound barrier is being traded. The Earth Shatter for Progi's good to find 3, and he's able to charge Mezek to his death. Now, can they find more? The supports are dancing on the opposite side, but Bar, he actually gets pushed aside, as well as Ruby from Sean P. Now everybody else will follow suit, but at 99%, it still found its way almost all the way there. Elo.Tick finally get control.
I think right here, you stay regrouped and you stay back for as long as you possibly can. Huge energy on Obling, right? But he's still 20% out towards his ult. Keep the shields up, get your own energy high, set up for your Graviton to come out before theirs. If you can do that, it's going to be a tough feat, but if you can do that, you have a really good shot here. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. Obling got in his right clicks.
Rallies being used for both teams. Sean B coming around the left-hand side with the Reggie ball. Does he have a minefield? Yes, he does. The Graviton Surge comes out the minefield, moves immediately afterwards. Can it find the damage it needs? ID has found the first kill. The size of the Crasher. Mezek is good. The self-destruct. Oh, it's massive! It takes down Carnifex and Vince. There's no support there, and it's the back end of a full team kill. 99% no longer. It's a full 100, and Dopamine even the score up 1-1.
So not only were we going the distance, this seems to always be the case when we have these situations where, you know, it's setting up, it's 2-2, things are tight. We're seeing, you know, dominance in the first half by one team, dominance in the second half by the other, and already it's a back and forth. Now we end things here on Control Center. This is where we're expecting to see. I mean, I'm sure if you had enough time, you would probably ask me what I'm expecting here, what kind of compositions. Well, it's going to be GOATs. No surprise there at all. The only question, again, is going to be whether or not, you know, we have like a Moira or a Zen or an Ana. And this time it's going to be straying away from the Moiras that we saw. And it's going to be Zen v Ana. And I think this actually does play into Elo.Tick to a degree here. I think they have a little bit of an advantage unless Dopamine can play reactively, catch Progi off guard, and just snipe him out early on in these fights.
Well, it looks to be that little bit of a toggle for positioning on the point first and foremost. Sean P will thrust forward and try to push people around. Mezek on the right-hand side. They're trying to trade access with Progi. ID will catch himself in charge. A nice anti-nade will force Babar back. And slept for only a hot instance was Mezek. Little cat nap on the point. Still no kills. Health pools are falling low, though. Most notably on Mezek. Has to put his shield back up, which almost fell down. And, now it is! It's an Earth Shatter! As if almost called, but he misses the charge on the Bims. Fortunately, Setlet cleans up his trash, and ID will find a kill on a Sean P. So Dopamine will set up first and foremost, and as expected, they'll move right on into the little lunar rover here and try to set up. Oh, actually, they're going to decide to play this one passively. They're setting back up on the point.
If Setlet isn't your MVP at the end of this, then you're wrong. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. I mean, look at how Mezek was able to get so far ahead. He's up at 20%. Progi still hasn't gotten his off. He's at 64%. He's not really even that close to getting his off. And it really comes down to the Diva Matrix just eating up everything that came their way.
Now Graviton Surges come out. They find about equal value. The self-destruct not finding much as Ruby pops the Transcendence at a peak moment. Nano boosted his Progi. He finds himself a bigger shatter, but it's immediately responded to by another sound barrier from Kara. The self-destruct up. It comes right back down, but finds absolutely nothing. At the end of everything, Dopamine still on the point. Still have not really toggled or let go of any positioning as of yet. Mezek, he's got another Earth Shatter. What will he find? When will he pull the trigger? Not many options at the moment as Elo.Tick keeps dancing near that health pack. Kanga on the side. We'll find a Bionade. We'll taggle on the two players. Carnifex wants to come through, but Mezek will get shielded. Still has not pulled the trigger. Looking for, he did pull the trigger, did not find anything off the back end of it. As now they're pushing through, they find a pin on the Progi, who was boosted, and he gets taken down still. The target prioritization is good. 70% and counting up. Sean P has to fall to his death, and the rest of Elo.Tick have to regroup for one, maybe two more good goes at this.
Kanga has to be a hero here. Oh, and he gets off of the Ana. I don't like that at all.
Wow,
because your big pressure point, I mean, like basically the pain point that was going to happen here was the Transcendence to answer Obling's Graviton Surge, and then you just have to Biotic there. You have to get the Biotic so that you can find the kills inside of that Graviton Surge, or you don't win the fight. And here, they put out the Zen instead. Now they don't have anything.
Graviton Surge comes out, and the self-destruct was the only combo that they could possibly have. Bims will throw out a Sun's Barrier. Babar trying to come on into the back end of a Grab Surge, but look at his Elo.Tick with Oblig. He finds himself 2 kills. Transcendence from Ruby just trying to keep this last hope there. The Mezic, he finds an Earth Shatter on the right-hand side. Wants to convert on it, but he gets pushed aside. Now coming back through with another charge, but Frogy and Oblig are here. The Sound Barrier from Kara to keep this offense from Dopamine alive, but it's a Graviton Surge right into Mezic. Can he stay through it? He's sustained himself. Kara's being pesky, and Mezic is pushing everybody away, and nobody can touch Dopamine. They'll take down Elo.Tick. It went a full 5, but at the end of the day, Lijiang Tower falls the way of Dopamine.
Yeah, and maybe if they would have had that Ana, they might have been able to be a little bit more lethal inside of Obling's Graviton Surge a second before last, but still an excellent turnaround off of the half. Our analysts were indeed spot on, saying this was going to go to the distance, and I mean, we wouldn't have had it any other way. These two teams are excellent, great performance from both of them. Definitely looking forward to seeing more. Obviously, you know, Elo.Tick is destined to be easily one of the strongest teams in the lower bracket as we have right now. Looking forward to watching their performance as things progress.
And they've made a lot of adjustments. Again,
Yep.
it does feel unfortunate if you're Elo.Tick to fall down to that bracket, but it's not over yet. They still can come back. But the story still stands with Dopamine. They make their way through round number 2 with a destined match to move through into round number 3. I've been Shift. He's been Herix. That's all from us. Let's break the rest of this set down with Gio and the Analysts.
What a fantastic series. Nari, I feel like I owe you an apology. I gave you a hard time for being a Glory supporter, and it turned out you were right. And I'm sure Vals will also graciously congratulate you, right?
Nah.
Can I just say, called it?
Well, I tried to keep us all friends, but clearly it didn't matter. But one thing I wanted to talk about was the choice of compositions between these two teams. It looked like we were going to have a turnaround. It didn't quite work out that way. Both these teams, particularly on Temple of Anubis, played a kind of janky dive. And it's been apparent, especially through the first half of this series, that Elo.Tick just really weren't a fan of playing these triple tank compositions. They didn't want to do these tank heavy compositions. But when they played them in the second half, it actually worked. Do we think that maybe that was just a big hindrance for them?
Yeah, it was, as I was saying at halftime, when you get your heads together at halftime, have a bit of a discussion, take a bit of a breather, and they've made some adjustments to the way they were playing, not only in running how they were running these triple tank compositions, putting a lot more recesses into Proki, but being able to have a more consistent theory with what they wanted to run as more of the anti-tank compositions. They would definitely look like a different team, and that's what made the series so competitive. I really like some of the adjustments we saw from both sides moving into the second half.
Unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough for either team. Oh, sorry, it wasn't quite enough for Elo.Tick. It wasn't. So we will see Elo.Tick falling down into the losers bracket and Dopamine moving forward into round 3 in the winners bracket. But it was interesting nonetheless. It was a fantastic series to watch, and I'm sure we will see some wonderful things out of all of these players. But we're going to have to say goodbye for now. So thank you so much, Vals and Nari, for joining me on the desk. And we will see you very shortly for round 3.
Calling for me, gravity.